Is everybody recording on your local audio?
I'm recording. Hello, government. I know you're listening.
Okay. I think that's it, and we're good. And we can start.
All right.
Hello, and welcome to episode 23 of the Foam News Collective podcast. I'm KT. I'm here with my co-host, Grimz Nerfworks, Jolt King 627, Vile Mods. Say what's up, y'all.
Hello.
What's up?
What up?
This is, of course, the partner podcast to episode 23 of the Foam News Collective show. If you've watched the show already, that'll probably help you through this episode of the podcast, but it's listenable without doing that. But we'll assume that you've seen some things that came up in the show. We are really excited today to have a special guest, 3D designer and an awesome community member, Sillybutts. How's it going today?
Hello, it's going pretty well.
Sweet. Really excited to have you on and talk about some of your current and past projects. We're going to chat with you about some of that stuff. We will, of course, get into we'll go through the stories that didn't make the show. We're going to chat about the SPAMF But Flywheel, or any of the other silly names that Grimz used for it.
Super
and
best
how
friend.
It fits. Super best friend.
SPAMF But
And how it
lame
fits
because it's not a
into-
Springer.
SBL, isn't that already a thing? SPAMF But long. Anyway, we're going to chat about that and how it fits into the larger sort of like electronic blaster scene right now. We are also going to play What's That Blaster, our guessing game that we play every episode. We have Ko-Fi questions, both for our guest and for the hosts today. We're also going to chat some more about the changing of the guard on Nerf YouTube, which we just lost 2 more YouTubers this last week. And then we'll have our fun closing question. But to start it right off, Silly, will you go ahead and sort of tell the folks what you're about? I feel like in a lot of cases, anyone listening to this probably at least knows who you are. But imagine someone doesn't know who you are. What's your elevator pitch
All right.
for what you do?
Hello, my name is Sillybutts, and I have a humorous name that doesn't quite fit. I make homemade Nerf blasters, and I also generally try to be a force of good in the community, helping other designers, helping other community members. I'm a moderator on r/Nerf and a few Discords, and I just generally try to, make good things that people will have fun with, and also keep a fun-loving, well-knit community functioning online.
I love that.
It is
I
worth
remember
noting that
one of
Silly
the-
does not look like his profile picture at all.
It's true.
Disappointing.
Yes.
Silly is not actually a chicken fish that smokes cigarettes.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's good that you don't smoke cigarettes, I guess, but otherwise,
Yep.
kind of disappointing. One of the last things I remember we talked about on this podcast way, way early on, you took a whole bunch of your sort of like unfinished projects and just put them out into the world to let other people work on, which I think is really reflective of your attitude of wanting to just sort of
Oh my word. I remember
benefit
this.
the hobby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun fact, there's something
has-
about that document. I looked at that document once and I can't get it off of like off of the, Google Notes or whatever. No matter how many times I say leave document, it keeps popping up.
You're stuck with
it-
me.
Yeah, it doesn't want to go. Do you
You'll
know of
always have
anybody
Silly.
who's like finished up any of those projects
I think
since then?
I think like 1 or 2 people have started working on things, but nothing has really come to fruition fully. But I'm okay with that as long as it helps someone in some way. That's good. And it also cleared out my to-do list quite a bit to make space for more garbage.
Files taking notes.
About what? Not finishing?
Yeah, well, this is how you get past the 12% mark, Vile.
Shut up.
One of the things I think that I was really, really into the Skewer, and then you did the pump Skewer, and the Skewer being a blaster that was specifically intended to be sort of the antithesis of the pump action primary class Springer, and then to make a pump action version of it, which was more than just a meme, like you had the skill level to actually make it a good blaster on top of being a meme. And so to sort of go from there, and then I was a beta tester for Thumper, which I've never built the version 2.0 of Thumper. I still have the version 1.
It's better.
I know it's
way
but
better.
like that takes time and filament, and like I just haven't had time.
Lots of
to do
filament.
it.
Yeah.
But I loved even the version 1 of that blaster. And the SLAB has really been a big hit. I feel like that's been a really big success, right? Like, how many?
SLAB has been the biggest, most successful blaster that I've done, but I'm not quite sure if it's my favorite.
Do you just mean
it's always that sort of thing with designers where the thing that becomes the most popular is the thing that they then nitpick the most a few months or years later. But yeah, SLAB is my claim to
if
fame.
your Radiohead, SLAB is your creep. Or
yes.
So what do you think is your favorite of your work? And when you say SLAB is the most popular, do you just mean in terms of like units built, or just like notoriety?
SLAB is the one that people tend to associate me with the most, and it's also the one that people have built the most. And I think that is more so. It's a great blaster, and people really like it. It has great aesthetics. It has very easy to assemble and very easy to print, which are two of my cornerstones in design methodology.
Well, and I think having something like lever action is very, very unique to this hobby. Where
exactly. There's no real other lever actions that existed before SLAB that took talons and were sort of like easily accessible.
Yeah. The Sentinel.
There was like the Winchester and the Medusa were both homemades, but other than that, you had stuff like the Slingfire.
The Slingfire
it was modding off the shelf stuff was the only way to get lever.
Slingfires break, and Sentinels are impossible to get for less than $60. So
well, then you look at the popularity of something like the Lock Blaster, which like all told is a sort of like an okay product, but like there's a hunger for lever action if you put a lever on something, you know. And so to have one that's built at this level of competence,
the only way that can be better is if really I can get this performance in the form factor of the Roblox Bees blaster.
It's been my favorite like fun blaster that I have. I like the Skewer quite a bit. I just don't personally own one, but my SLAB that I got done at SFI, I take it to wars now. We do like 200 and something FPS, but whenever we have an indoor war, I will take a spot, bunker down, and I don't have to even like prime in front of it. I can like position the blaster on top of cover and then just rapid fire off shots without even like poking too far out of it. It's fun.
So good. Well, so back to my question though. What is your favorite? If there was one blaster that you'd rather be better known for, what would it be?
Oh, that's so hard to answer because you know, like it's hard to choose a favorite. But it's also hard to choose a favorite.
Who is your favorite child? Who is your favorite child?
I don't remember everything that I've made. I've forgotten a lot of the blasters that I've designed. I think that the one that I personally enjoy the most from like I would have liked this before I started designing things sort of mindset, where if I hadn't designed it, I would have gone and bought it anyway, would probably be the Sillymax 1400, which is it's a thought exercise trying to recreate the Supermax line from Laramie, which was a 90s blaster company.
See, I was kind of figuring that would have been your favorite design, considering throughout most of the time I've known you, that has kind of been like one of your favorite general things, like you talking about the history of Laramie blasters and others, like variety of products.
Supermax
I could
is
do a
so
full
cool.
hour-long podcast ranting about Laramie and Supermax.
Supermax blasters. That's peak aesthetic right there. I'm just saying, a blaster that looks like a super soaker.
So good.
Please, Hasbro, really you want my money? Make a Half Dart Pro level Supermax blaster. I would buy the shit out of that.
Yep. I really do enjoy that blaster, but not just because it was a fun end product, but it was also a very interesting design project because I had never really immersed myself in a different company or different designer's design language other than when I did the pump skewer. But that was more kind of stretching and mashing what already existed rather than making something from scratch to fit in an existing line.
Yeah.
So the Sillymax 1400 was a lot of fun to make, and it still performs well because you got a Titan tank in there.
Titan tank will always be a
Something
Titan
I gotta
tank.
sell in
Yeah, at the end of the day.
See, the only
Exactly,
thing that's
yeah.
kept me from building one of those is I just don't want to give up a Titan because I like using them for Titan Ball, and I have like exactly the
Yeah,
right
yeah.
number.
Are you
But I
saying
would
that you need me to
love-
send you a Titan tank?
Do you have an extra Titan tank?
I have a lot.
I could probably
Alright.
use one as well then.
Do it.
I think KT has a Silly Max coming up in the future.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
very maybe. Well, and so
Yep.
okay, so with a blaster like that, though, being sort of like a thought experiment, I know that Alchemist is one of your recent sort of bigger main projects, and it
Yep.
seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like Alchemist is a little bit more like you were trying to answer, sort of like use your prior experiences in project building to actually like try to fill a need to sort of like come up to what people are looking for in primary class springers. Like how did your prior experience sort of build into something like Alchemist?
Well, Alchemist started out. I'm gonna have to like go back a little bit into how it came to be.
In fact,
because
it sort of explain what Alchemist is too, just for anyone that missed that story or whatever.
Oh yeah, so Alchemist is a pump action springer, like a Talon Claw or a SBL, but it is a pump action springer with the best aspects from all other homemade designs in the past few years, and it's basically my attempt to make the best possible pump action springer without going over a price budget of the same price as a Talon Claw.
Interesting.
So I tried to stay within $5 of a Talon Claw price, which ended up being somewhere around $65, $66. With that budget, trying to make it the best possible blaster. So it has aluminum bars as the body structure of the blaster, like a Lynx. It tensions those bars like a Talon Claw, so you get the best of both methods of construction. It takes Talon magazines. It has an adjustable stock. It has ball bearings in the priming grip, so it's super smooth. Has a ball detent in the priming system, so you can lock it forwards while you run around, and it won't flap around the breech, opening and closing and filling darts in the barrel, which is an issue with other competitive level blasters. Yeah, and it's just my attempt to make it as good as I possibly could have done.
Yeah.
For the price
how
budget.
did some of your other work sort of like inform that? Because like when you say the goal was to make the best in this category, to sort of like synthesize all these sort of like disparate needs that people have in those types of blasters, like best like according to like what you're looking for, or like did you run polls, or were you just sort of like going through discussions about what people want, or what?
A lot of it was kind of dissatisfaction with other blasters that I'd built. I built a Talon Claw V3. It's fine. I never really used it because it bends like a wet noodle. I built a Talon Claw U. Love that blaster, but no one else really does. So making mod parts for it would have kind of fallen flat in the community. And it's also really heavy. I built an SBL. SBL, pretty good, but there were some aspects to it that were like the printing on the SBL is a bit iffy for people with doo-doo printers. And I generally tried to aim for the easiest printability with the widest variety of printers and the most allowance for having crappy printers.
Yes, I really appreciate
nice
that
tolerancing
too,
and all
because
that
like
stuff.
I'm like a casual user of a Prusa Mini. That's like the only thing I have. And I've been able to do a lot. And part of it is designers keeping that in mind while working on certain projects. Obviously, there's certain things that you want to achieve that you're just not going to be able to achieve without a well-tuned printer. But like one of the things we talked about in this show, there's a fella designed a like air scar that it has like the channels more like kind of like rifling, right? That feels like it works really well, but because it doesn't come in tight or like make friction contact with the dart, it's a lot more forgiving on the print. And so I was able to like print one first try, and it seems like it works great. So like I really appreciate projects like that sort of like try to make leeway and that sort of open it up to a wider range of people to be able to potentially print their own and build them.
Yeah. So the stuff that went into Alchemist is sort of an amalgamation of previous things I've done. And that's really how I like to describe my design process, not necessarily my design philosophy. That's a separate thing. But the way that I actually design things is I reuse stuff a lot. If I've already made something once, I'll just go and use that again. If I can talk to another designer and they've made something that I'm going to need something similar of, like a grip, and I don't want to go and design a whole new grip because designing grip geometry is a pain in the butt. But if I can just go to someone else like Captain Slug and say, hey, can I use your grip in my designs? And he says yes, then I'm going to use his grip in my designs. I'm going to change it, but I'm just going to use it. So Alchemist is an amalgamation of a bunch of my previous designs as well as a bunch of other people's designs. And the way the Alchemist came to be was I made the Cynthia, which is a bolt-action blaster in similar form factor to the Indra by Captain Slug, but in a completely different way of going about it, mechanically speaking. I was working on Cynthia, and it occurred to me that I had previously made a pump-action version of the Indra, because of course I have. The same person that makes the pump action Skewer makes the pump action Indra, because pump action everything. And I was like, okay, I should make a pump action Cynthia as well. So I made that, made a prototype, and the prototype was pretty good. But I felt like there were a lot of ways I could improve it, so I basically threw it all away, took the best bits I liked of it, and then I made Alchemist, which is kind of like the second version of that concept, where I used a lot of aspects from Cynthia. It has the same grip and the same sort of aluminum bar assembly, where it has aluminum bars going along the length of the blaster. But I wanted to use basically the best parts from other people's designs, and that took a lot of discussion with other designers to make sure that I wasn't stepping on toes, because I don't want to, go and ask someone, hey, can I borrow this part for my blaster? And they say yes, and I like destroy their current project.
Well, and we have
like if someone's
like the
working
community
on a
of
different
the
blaster.
community that's doing this is in fact a pretty small community. It's important. Those relationships are very important, and sort of like being able to support each other without causing harm to what someone else is working on is really important.
Yeah. So yeah, Alchemist is basically an amalgamation of the Cynthia bolt action blaster, low hardware Talon-Claw U, which was a blaster that I made leading up to End War 2022, where it's basically a Talon-Claw U without any hardware in it. Yeah. It's all prints and dovetails and stuff like that. Used a lot of the dovetail methods from that I learned there in Alchemist to reduce hardware costs. Because remember, I'm aiming for that super low price point, taking into consideration the quality of the blaster itself. So if I need to add ball bearings to the hardware cost in order to get that smoothness, I need to take away that cost somewhere else, which ended up being I reduced the amount of screws and bolts that I needed by using printed dovetails selectively in
Speaking
areas.
of which, have you looked at, we just covered them in this show, Domachevsky's X-Shot Micro reshells yet?
I saw him designing it in a Discord chat once, and we stayed up until midnight talking about it. But I haven't looked at it since he released it.
Have you seen the way that he connects the different parts together? Because it's another situation where he wanted there to be no hardware other than what comes with the micros. And
I have not
So
seen
the different,
that.
I'm holding one in my hand, which is making me think about it. The different pieces are attached with these 3D printed, he calls them pins, but it's like a serrated rectangular prism.
It's like a dowel.
Mm.
Yeah, you push it in to like holes that it fits in perfectly, and it'll only go one way because the serrated parts bend just slightly. And so the whole thing, and obviously it's much lower power that it has to like hold, doesn't have to hold as much string tension as something
Of
like
course,
the Alchemist
it's a
does.
small blaster
but
originally.
It's super solid once it gets together, and you could still hammer the pin out if you needed to, but it's literally
Mhm.
no hardware. Really, really, really clever.
If it's-
Yeah, that's
but
quite smart. That sounds like a very good use of 3D
Yeah.
printing as a
I've
manufacturer.
been seeing a lot more blasters that use very low hardware, like especially the stuff that Lidl Designs has been making, like
Yes.
a lot of their blasters. The way they've been doing stuff in a way that you don't necessarily need very much hardware, and they can reinforce their designs to be pretty structurally
I love
sound is quite impressive.
Yeah.
That's so good. Okay, so from there, I want to go into our Ko-Fi subscribers. One of the things that they get to do is ask questions of our guests. So if you're interested in hitting up our guests for questions, yes, you, the listener, be sure to check out our Ko-Fi linked down below wherever you're listening to or watching this. And we got 2 of our Ko-Fi subscribers had questions for Silly, and one of them had multiples, but since only 2 asked, I'm just going to go ahead and just ask all of them. Iron Gopher asks, your Super Sledge project seems overshadowed by other wait, I feel like that's the opposite of what we just said, but I'm going to run with the question anyway. Your Super Sledge... Wait, no. It is not the opposite of what
you're
he's
right.
saying.
Yeah, it's right.
Yeah. I was thinking SLAB
yep,
when I
yep.
started to read it, and that's not what he was talking about. It's funny because...
Again, all the designs, there's so
Yes.
many, you
Well,
can't keep
it's
track
funny
of them.
too because I started to build a Super Sledge when it first came out, and I have pretty much the whole thing printed, and I have most of the parts, and I just never got around to building it.
And she
there's
has
just-
his mounted up on a wall, and he really likes his.
Mhm.
I just have a box of the parts. Maybe someday I'll finish it just to
I thought
finish
that
it,
was
'cause,
one
like,
you didn't
it's-
finish.
He didn't complete the design, no, it never officially released.
No, but it was...
It sort of
But
did, but we'll get that.
It's
We'll
buildable.
get to that.
It's functional. Anyway, your Super Sledge project seems overshadowed by other more recent projects, yet remains a personal favorite of mine. What project of yours is your favorite or the most labor of love? And what project from another maker in the hobby most scratches an itch for you?
So, the first aspect of that question, the which project of yours is a favorite? We already touched on that earlier in the episode. Sillymax 1400,
Yes.
really nice blaster, like it a lot. But I don't think that's my best design quality. I did that as a personal project, and therefore it was kind of iffy on the printability and assembly side. It's not to the same standards I hold myself to normally because I was going to only print one, and then enough people asked for them that I decided to release it online. So yeah, that's how that one went. But the what's more of a labor of love, I think, would probably be Thumper. And that's a older blaster in my design catalog. And I designed it around the same time as the Super Sledge. But that one took a solid year or almost a year and a half. I can't really remember how long it took exactly, but it was somewhere in that time frame from putting pencil to paper, starting design, till I released a version I was actually happy with. That one
And
took
are
a
you talking
really
about
long
the first
time.
version or the second version there?
So there's two versions of Thumper. The first version was basically a beta test. And then by the time that the beta had ended, I was starting to get to work on SLAB. So I didn't really have time to polish it as much as I wanted to. And then, so I put off release. And then by the time that I was done with SLAB and pretty much ready to start releasing Thumper, that V1, Slug closed his shop. So I couldn't really push it out immediately. I had to wait a few months for Slug's production to move to Out of Darts and Silver Fox and all those other people. And then by the time that had finally happened, SLAB had grown to be a big success, starting to work on some other projects like Cynthia, or early versions of Cynthia. And instead of releasing Thumper as it was, I felt that I could have done a lot better.
Mm.
So I made a V2. I basically threw out the entire blaster and I started from scratch, clean slate, and I'm much happier with that V2. And that's the one that's currently up for sale, and that one took a long time. Thumper as a whole took a long time to go from that original prototype till V2, which is the one that actually released. And that one took a lot of fiddling to make work smoothly, lots of collaboration with other designers trying to make things just a little bit better. I needed to completely relearn how I made cam tracks for advancing the harmonica clip. And KT, you can probably speak to the V1 Thumper.
Yeah. Well, because
it's
for
kind
anyone
of
familiar with my
at some
channel,
points.
I made 2 different videos on the V1 Thumper, long before the V2 became a thing, and like, it's a little finicky. Like, it's it's an earlier design, but it's always worked. It's like I've taken it into games and gotten tags with it. Like it's consistent. Once you kind of know its quirks, it's still very consistent. And like you learn how to like reset it by like flipping it upside down and like jiggling the harmonica clip, and I can do it like super consistently now. So like even for like an early version and prototype, I certainly would understand you being like dissatisfied with it, and like obviously there's a reason that you went and made a V2. But even the V1 works very well. It's consistent and it's a lot of fun to play with. I certainly can see the benefit of like you shrank the harmonica clips for V2 significantly, because I like the idea of being able to carry extras.
So big.
Yeah, they're so big in the original version. And I have extras, but like you change the design a couple times, so I have some extra ones that are like not, they don't fit the. Because Mega XL has all these weird exterior diameter problems, which was part of the issue. But I still love V1 Thumper, and actually, while we're talking about it, I still have my V1 Thumper. But I think what I'm gonna do, if Clowny does his Christmas toy drive this year, which we're getting pretty far into November, so I don't know if it's gonna happen. But if he does, I think I'm gonna offer it as a prize. So if anyone's interested to get the Thumper that was in 2 of my videos, and is still a fully functioning blaster, it works great. I'll send extra clips that fit it, and it's still a lot of fun to play with. I will probably give that away in that context.
While we're speaking on the Thumper, correct me if I'm wrong. The Sillypistol and the mag ejecting Talon Claw were around or earlier from that project, right?
Those were quite a bit earlier.
Those are the ones, oddly enough, aside from the SLAB, those are the 2 I remember the most, probably because I remember watching stuff a lot more closely back then. And then also I got to see them at End War 22. The mag ejecting Talon Claw was really fun, and I still think the Sillypistol is probably one of my favorite sidearms, hobby based.
The mag ejecting Talon Claw, I want to go into these 2 for like a few minutes because I never really get to talk about them.
Yeah, that's why I figured I'd bring them up, because those are some of my more ones that I distinctly remember you with.
Yeah, the mag ejecting Talon Claw was a project I made in like 2 weeks. And it is still the most viewed video on my YouTube channel at 14,000 views when I normally barely break 1K ever. And it is garbage. It is so bad. You break your magazines on the floor. You can hit yourself in the face with them.
But it's so fun.
That's all part of the fun.
It uses rubber bands to launch them, so the rubber bands break over time. They sit on like bare screws, so it wears through the rubber bands. It's just so janky and garbage. And then it's still the most viewed video, and I'm like, why?
That's YouTube.
If you really want it to drive you nuts, make a 1-minute vertical version of it, put it on YouTube as a short, and put it on TikTok. That thing will crack 1 million on TikTok, I bet you, if you hit the algorithm right.
Oh, definitely. So funny thing about that, the mag ejecting Talon Claw is based on a Talon Claw V3.
Mm-hmm.
About like a year after I made it, Boomstick Mods, I think it was Boomstick Mods, I might be mistaken about who this was, but someone messaged me and they're like, hey, can I build one? And by that point, I had built some other things. And I was like, no, it's bad. And then I took another 2 days, remade the whole thing from scratch, and then sent them the files. I don't think they ever made it. But technically, there is a V2 Maggie Checkting Talon Claw file set
somewhere out
that
there.
exists.
Somewhere out there.
I think it's based on a Talon Claw U.
Terrifying.
It has some of the jank fixed, but that exists.
Wow.
You could build it.
Okay.
The original one took 17 hours to print.
Oh my god.
A Magwell.
All right, I want to make sure we get to the other part of Gopher's question. What
yes, of
project
course,
from
yep.
another maker in the hobby scratches an itch for you? Maybe it's something that you always wanted to see achieved, but you weren't going to put the time in, or maybe it's something that I don't know what.
That is a very good question. 1 second, let me think about this for a second. I did a blog post for Out of Darts a year ago now, where I answered this exact same question.
Oh, really?
So let me pull that up because I can't remember. I can't remember what my answers were. Because it's so hard to keep track of everything that exists these days. There's just so much. I think that the one I like the most. Well, it's hard to pick. Of course, there's just so many things. The thing that I think is the most interesting blaster in terms of design, there is a C35A Rocinante, which is a blaster by Cobalt Designs.
Oh, I remember that.
I've heard from people that own them that they're kind of in terms of functionality.
Oh, but there's aesthetics
but the
to
build
consider
quality
here.
is pretty good, and the aesthetics are beautiful.
Yeah.
It's all smooth lines, swoops,
Cobalt stuff
beautiful
is
curves.
just gorgeous.
So
I
good.
love Cobalt stuff.
Yep.
Especially all the Clone
It's
Wars
so
stuff.
good.
Cobalt stuff is just
so cool.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a great.
And then aside from that, you're gonna have to give me two others.
No, go
two
for it.
other things to mention,
Please.
because something that people never pay attention to is stuff that people are making in China for 3D prints. There is two particular ones I have in mind. Shanye, who is the person that made the lever action.
Oh yeah, no,
takedown
I love
kits.
Shanye. I have a lever action Saturn with that kit. That's just
Kanye's stuff
One of my
is
favorite
something that I
blasters.
really like looking at. They just have a lot of different interesting designs.
They make some really nice things. But some of the things that they make never make it over to the US. And one of those is a break action shell fed pistol, where when you break it open, it primes the whole blaster. You feed in a shell in the back, flip it up with one hand, and fire it. And it is so cool, and it never made it to the US. And Shanye is also currently working on, I think this is Shanye, something to mention about the Chinese Nerf scene is that whatever information makes it to the US is garbled.
of course.
So could be misattributed. But I think Shanye is currently working on lever action, which of course I
Of
like.
course.
Which is a tube magazine lever action that doesn't use shells. You just feed darts into a tube, and then
Ooh.
it lifts them up on an elevator and pushes them into the breach, and it has the plunger tube in the grip of the blaster. It's so cool.
Pro level lever action monorail, except it works. Basically.
Yeah, it's so cool.
That's wonderful.
And then the other one that I have in mind is let me look it up to make sure that I'm getting the name correctly. I think that the name of it is the Robin. It is a break action blaster. Again, I like break action and weird priming methods. But it's a break action blaster where you break it open, you put in a dart in the back, and you flip it up. It's a pistol, once again. And it primes in a very interesting way. It kind of primes like a... if there's any old school nerfers in the chat, there is a blaster that was commonly modded called the Splat pistol. Splat
Oh,
paintball
that thing.
pistol. Where it has a lever on the top to prime it. It primes like that, but they flipped it around, and then they put a barrel on the lever, and they made the plunger tube bigger and added an extra linkage on the inside. It is so creative and inventive, and it's awesome, and I want one. But China.
Yep. It's hard to cross that.
I can't read the instructions.
that
I
bridge.
can't find the files, and I can't find the hardware.
Well, someday, maybe. One more question, and then we're gonna get on to some of the news stuff. Teacup Story asks, is there any project you have wanted to try but never got around to it, or feel like you can't yet for some reason?
Yes, constantly. My white whale, the blaster concept that I've never been able to fully pull off is anything related to shells. Shells are just like the bane of my existence.
Yeah.
Other than AEGs, I hate making AEGs, but I'm the only one, really making significant progress.
Well,
towards
and
a
yet
printable
you have
one,
a
but
new
we'll get back to that
project
later.
focused on shells that you just started working on, correct?
Yeah. So I'm currently working on. I actually have it up on my main screen right now. I have a main screen that I'm looking at while I'm talking to you guys. I'm working on a pump action shotgun that uses my own new shell standard, and it's laid out similar to a Spring Thunder or a Sobek. And this time I'm going for basic as it can be, because since the Super Sledge, which was like 2 years ago now, I've been trying to make shell-fed blasters, and they're just such a giant pain in the butt.
Right.
It's so annoying trying to get shells that do what you want them to do, because Spring Thunder shells pretty small, Flypoint shells way smaller. Spring Thunder shells are all that people have. So if you make a new shell, you might as well make it as good as you possibly can. And then you get like Sobek shells. Sobek hasn't been released, even though it's been quote unquote done for like 2 years. But Rajar, or how you pronounce his name. Great guy.
Well, because like I never built.
Takes so long to
I never built
perfect it.
or got a. I was waiting for the Sobek, so I never did. You just said the name, and I'm blanking on the name.
Spring Thunder.
Spring Thunder.
The Spring Thunder. I never did a Spring Thunder because I was waiting on Sobek, and now Sobek is vaporware. So I'm really excited about this project, if only because now like you're in a race against Sobek to actually get released, which seems like a race you may actually win based on how long it's been for that thing to come out.
I just want the Sobek to release because like it
seems
cool.
like it answers all the questions and like opens up other ammo. Oh my God, the fact that there's a shell for nitro cars with the wheels taken off. Come on.
Yeah.
Like, I remember we were
go.
just talking about this a couple podcasts ago. I was like,
Yes.
I found one that was for sale in Singapore that was in Vile's colors. I was like, Vile, this exists. And it turns out it was sold like a year ago.
It was gone.
Yeah.
It was gone.
So the issue with... So getting back on the shell train, the issue with making shell-based blasters is that you can't really do things the way that you want to do them. Shells are really constraining in how you design around them. The blaster needs to be specific size. The shells need to go somewhere. The shells need to feed in correctly. You need to get rid of the shells. The shells need to have enough airflow to push things through them. Shells make every ammo type less reliable and less efficient in how the air is used, because there's generally not a sealed barrel. If you do have a sealed barrel with a shell, then that's even more complexity. How does the barrel seal with the shell? How does the ammo feed out of the shell into the barrel? How does the air work through all of that? It's a headache.
This is one of the things where like shell ejection is fun, and that's why we have it in this hobby, because we do a lot of stuff that's just for fun. But at a certain point, with all the extra struggles that shells involve, you better be getting the benefits of shells, which is why like I've never gotten into like Flypoint blasters. Nothing against it. It's obviously super fun to run around and like be firing a fast shell ejecting blaster like that. But I'm more interested in something like this, where the shells offer me the option of carrying multiple ammo types. And I know that Boomstick has had great, like always sings the praises of the having of the Spring Thunder with multiple shell options and being able to swap ammo types on the fly. And so I'm excited to have that with a wider ammo range.
They were highly effective with it at End War 2022.
Yeah.
One thing I would like to bring up is that there is one advantage to some of these shells. In things like the Kieran, if you're really wanting incredibly consistent performance over a longer period of time, technically the shell will protect your darts, so you can leave those mags loaded and they won't squish the darts. So they'll stay, they'll still perform better.
I guess.
Like, if you live in an area where that's a problem, I could see why that would be an advantage.
Fair enough. I don't know how big of an effect that is, but you're not wrong.
You're not wrong. I'll give you that. You're not wrong. But I don't know if you're right.
It goes into the higher speed blasters.
He's out of line, but he's got the right idea.
Well, it does. It goes into higher speed blasters. I had this talk with Domo actually, because when you're really pushing like fly point, right, high speed stuff where if it's shell ejecting, when you're putting and this was sort of the reason of the mythical drum being designed by Ezekiel, was because the problem with it is that you put so much crush on the darts because you need such a heavier spring that it either smashes the darts and you just destroy them. So you had to have this completely designed, drum mag that separates everything and doesn't put as much of a load on, a stack of darts or 50 darts in a row or whatever. But when you have shells, you could put the heaviest spring load you want and it will just feed like it's nothing, and you can go into high speed, and it does work in very particular occurrences, like in particular designs, obviously. And again, high speed is where it really shines.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what's the Gatling gun?
Oh, the
guys.
Gatling Tommy.
Yeah.
His thing uses shells, and his thing feeds really
Moab,
fast.
yeah.
His thing also wears out really fast because it uses shells.
Right.
And it's an AG at the same time.
Yeah. It's
multiple AEGs.
It's multiple
shells.
AEGs.
Shells are hard. Shells are hard. But I know that we're a little bit pressed for time. But I do want to go.
I am excited that you're making
shells.
a shell thing.
Yes.
But we should move on and get to the news stuff for the time being. I'll tell you what. When you get that shell thing going, we'll have you back, and we'll talk about shells forever, because I think all of us love talking about shells.
I would love to go into designing new shells.
Please.
Because if you're designing a shell, you might as well do it.
Just come back on the show when you're ready to decide what other ammo types that you're gonna make, and we'll give you like 20 ideas that you don't want to deal with.
I can make a super max dart shell for darts that cost like $5 per because they're rare.
Yes,
you bet.
Absolutely.
Make it Fire Ultra.
Moving into the news. As always, we list the stories that did not make the show, and initially this was going to be none, and so much stuff got thrown at us at the last second, and we actually worked most of it into the show, and yet there are other things that were given to us that did not wind up making the show. The first of those is Dart Zone released their podcast episode about the fixes to the Omnia, and I'm just going to rant about this for a second, because Dart Zone calls this a podcast. It's not a podcast, it's an advertisement, right? And this particular episode is
Corpo spin.
I this is nothing personal against the gentlemen that do the podcast. Like, they're doing their job. I understand this, but part of the thing that's bugging me about this is they're calling it the Omnia Gen 2. It's a recall. It's a replacement for a recall of a flawed product. And I see, like, I hope that everybody sees that calling it the Gen 2 is just a marketing trick.
Oh yeah, this is 100% Corpo spin right here. That entire
it's just
podcast.
a marketing trick to try to get around the product failure the first time around. And it's really important to see that and to see through the spin of having this like podcast episode. But the thing that I thought was really funny is if you watch the episode, and I don't think that they've replaced it or anything, there's an audio glitch in the video where the audio skips and then the audio is off of is out of sync with the video. And I've been joking that they may have fixed the firing delay in the blaster, but the audio took on the firing delay and is now no longer working correctly on their podcast, unfortunately.
Alternatively, they took the skipping from the Deuce Pro and put it in the video.
That's entirely possible. So anyway, we skipped this. We did not cover this story because we already covered we already knew about everything that they were doing to fix the Omnia. That was covered back with Toy Fair. And Buff Daddy found out that information from the Dart Zone booth and shared it on his blog on Blaster Hub, and we reported on that as well. So we've already reported on that information, and it just felt like taking Dart Zone's advertising and repeating it. We didn't want to put time into doing that, especially with the amount of stuff we have in this episode. We also had reported to us the Busby Bug Slayer, and I, as a new product, and that was a weird one to me because Busby sends me stuff, and they sent me a Bug Slayer like months ago. And I reached out to them, and I could not confirm whether the version that was sent to us had turquoise, where ours has blue, where mine has blue. I couldn't confirm if it's a new product or if this was a recolor, or I have no clue. And kind of ultimately, we decided just to leave it out. It's not a dart shooter, right? It's like a bug extermination tool.
Salt.
And
but it's a children's bug extermination.
Well, it actually
shoot your eye out with salt.
The packaging says it's suggested for 18 and it's like it's intended for adult use.
Yes.
But which is funny because with this whole debacle about what is a pro blaster and like the 14 and up age range and stuff, like nobody's talking about the like
Busby Pro fires salt.
Pro salt slinger.
Exactly. And so ultimately it was kind of like, it's kind of like tangential to the topic of the show. Anyway, let's just drop it and like not worry about it. But for anyone that wants, I mean, it's fine. I tried to kill bugs with it and I couldn't get it to work, but I think it's a skill issue. I'm not very practiced.
It depends on the bug, KT. Like
firing. It does depend on the bug.
Bugs. I
just use
you are not up to date on your salt marksman.
I just use my links, to be honest. It does everything I need it to. I've killed a wasp with it before. I've killed a wasp with it, many a spider. It's nice. It's nice.
Someone should build a dart blaster specifically for killing bugs and call it like the grasshopper or something.
I honestly feel bad when people shoot bugs with blasters because it's supposed to be a fun thing. I'm
a bug relocator, but I give no except when there's like a wasp in my office, right? Like I don't have a way to even like let it out a window if I wanted to, but also like I don't know, I'd prefer to just not get stung. So
I've caught one with a towel before.
Yeah, it's doable, but like I'm good. Moving on, we also got a report on the new lock and load. This is not related to the vintage lock and load, but it's actually one of you can say, I forget what the blaster is that it's a remake of.
Shadow.
It is a Shadow
ICS6.
ICS6. That piece of junk.
So it's
all Elite 2.0 blasters are the same to me.
I don't even care about the blaster itself. All I care about is that it has the barrel from that Ghost Stops stability kit or whatever it was called.
It's neat. It has cool parts that haven't been available in a while. The colors are nice. We've reported on this before. The only thing that's new is that it's available at Walmart and there's a price, but I'm pretty sure we already knew the price from the leak.
Yeah.
I think they've also come out in Canada since, because I know Nerf Talk had one.
Yeah, Nerf Talk had one. That's true. Which we'll get to Nerf Talk later. And then one thing that almost didn't make the show, but did wind up making the show because it literally was dropped on it. So I mention this all the time. I literally was judging a Pokemon tournament like an hour and a half ago. And while I'm there, I check my phone and there's like, everybody's like, oh my God, there's another thing dropping. Dart Zone just announced this the Dart Zone Pro Jolt. What's it called? The Dart Zone Solo? Or the
Max
Pro
Solo?
Yeah. Max Solo?
Solo, a Jolt story.
Yes.
And I mean, it's kind of interesting, right?
It reminds me of that one Rebel blaster. What's that thing called? The Mini Mischief? Where it folds up into a brick?
Oh,
yeah, that little folding blue one.
Rebel had so many foldy things. Yeah. I love the folding Rebel stuff.
So for once, I'm the one that hasn't looked at a story. How hard does this thing actually shoot?
It says 120.
It's a Jolt.
But that's using those lighter darts. It's the like, what are those? 0.75 grams.
It's the bamboo
What are those?
X2. It's the
yeah,
bamboo
whatever they are.
X2s.
They're lighter than normal, so it's not going to hit that hard with regular darts.
Well, again, I had to write that in as presumably with the X2s because they're claiming
Right.
it comes with X2s. We're going to just have to assume that's what it got its FPS with.
Right.
also very
'cause,
interesting that it's a Max product and comes with the bamboos.
That is
Yeah.
interesting.
Hmm.
What? How hard does a menace shoot stock? Isn't that
A Menace
like,
shoots like 80.
right? So like I don't know. It's considering the size of it versus like a menace, like it kind of just feels like a expected sort of like boost.
Yeah,
Especially
but then
when you're
also
using
you
lighter
can get
darts.
like a pilot and get way more than that.
Right. But
Yeah. I mean,
I like the
grip looks nice.
I
It
like the
does.
form
It
factor.
does.
I like the price. I like the price for what it does. Is if you can find it on the shelf right now, if you order it and you have to ship it.
I don't
but,
like
if I-
one thing about it though. I don't like the lack
What?
of a trigger guard. I really don't like the lack of a trigger guard.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
On Jolts,
Well,
that's like a
it's
death
folding.
sentence.
You can't really.
Yeah,
get
I
around
know
it.
That's
that,
true.
but like also there are other ways you can make the breach open. Like they didn't have to make it fold up.
Yeah.
I think it would have been better to have the trigger guard personally, because on that high of a spring load, your finger is going to be smashing into that trigger, and that we know from some like micro shots that can cause an issue.
It's
Maybe
why
it worked on this one.
Yep.
Hopefully not. Maybe the catch works a little bit differently. Remains
I
to
mean,
be seen.
you're stating that it's loading like it's breach loading. It never said anything about breach loading, and there's no photos to actually show what it looks like.
Yeah,
I
it
have
is.
no idea.
What
I
you're
think
doing
it's a
is you're
front
folding
loader,
down the barrel
probably.
to load it.
I think it's front loader.
Jolt, you're saying that, but there is no photos, and it does not state breach loading anywhere in the description.
Yeah.
So you're doing that purely on speculation, and until we can see the back end, because I was like, oh, cool, maybe it'll be in the Instagram post that they
I'm
put up.
just gonna guess
Wasn't
it's a
there.
front loader, but I'm not necessarily sure.
You can't
I hope
front
it's a
load
rear
that.
loader.
If you guys want a little bit of designer weigh-in on the topic, it looks to me like
I'm literally looking at here.
Loader.
Yes, it is. I'm literally looking right at Blaster Time's comments on it, who has one in hand. It is in fact a breech loader.
Oh,
Oh,
Well, there you go.
okay.
there we go.
Well, I was gonna say it looks like they would have basically the barrel be straight through, so you could breach or rear load it. It doesn't look like there's enough meat around the back of the barrel for there to be like an O-ring or something like that on the barrel side of it. So I reckon that they're having an O-ring on the handle side of the breech bendy bit that just pokes into the back of the barrel. They've done that sort of thing on like the Deuce Pro and stuff like that.
Right.
They probably could have just reused the geometry, and it looks like they have the flippy open bit on the
That's
top
probably
back
how they're
bar.
getting a little extra power, is because you actually have a tiny bit of barrel length to sort of take advantage of some more of the plunger tube space, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because you're-
and
because you're loading it in
pushing
the back,
all the
and
way
so you
back
get-
to the back
yeah,
as well, and you're using
You get a
half
longer
dart.
seal. Yeah. Okay. I mean,
and it's a metal barrel.
yeah. I whatever.
That's
Again,
Someone said $10 of the $15 price point is that.
right. Exactly. I think it looks fun. Again, if I can walk into a store and pick one of these up, I totally will.
Oh, I'm totally
Yeah,
buying one.
I'd buy it.
If I have to go online and order it, maybe. If I have to pay shipping.
I referenced this in the meme I had made, but like, it just reminds me in look wise to the Nerf pen blaster, the folding pen blaster.
Yeah, it does look like that.
That's
It
what it
does.
reminds me of, and that's why I
I
pointed it
recently
out.
got one of those new in box.
Yeah, I know, because
that's fresh on the mind.
Bobo was selling 2 of those, and I think he sold them to Beret recently, so that's why it was recently in
Oh,
the brain,
interesting.
because I had seen them. And
Interesting.
the same way it folds
You're right. It does have that same sort of kind of
profile.
I don't
yeah.
know. Rigid, not ergonomic profile. It's hard to describe, but yes, I agree.
Okay.
It's a Jolt
It is-
that bends.
Dart Zone Jolt.
I need
Jolt.
it.
So speaking
Solo King.
Speaking of other things that are definitely Jolt reskins, the SPAMF But Flywheel has finally
Yes, yep.
become real. Gavin Fuzzy's big flywheeler project. It joins blasters like Momentum, the generally not available anymore FDL. What else?
Mhm.
In being a hobby based 3D printable, brushless, highly controllable, like intended very much for high level competitive play.
Yeah.
flywheeler.
I think there might be the other things. Is I remember Taruk has, I forget what it's called, the brick.
I think it's the T19 is
something like that.
thing.
And then there's also I don't know if Adrian's making a blaster, but I know he's making brushless motors, so maybe he's designing a blaster.
There's also the Spirit.
Yeah,
that one's relatively new.
I can't remember if it's brushed. There's the G and K, which we covered back ages ago.
Yep. That was like one of our first episodes.
Yeah,
and Gonk.
And then there's also
I think they made a brushless version, but it's not brushless by default. The Gonk or whatever.
Yeah.
There's also the,
I don't know how you pronounce acronyms.
The Thor Mjolnir or whatever it was that we covered ages ago.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that thing.
Yeah.
Well, so how does this fit, I guess, in the world of these sort of high... We talked a bunch last episode or the episode before that, I don't know, recently, about sort of the rise of like more like boutique blasters that are becoming available. I think this is sort of the realm of that for electronic blaster, for flywheelers at least. How does this fit into the market right now?
It's weird because on the one hand, I was gonna say Momentum and the SBF were like Strife and Rapid Strike, but not really, because the difference is that the Momentum, they both have select fire. It's just one the SBF doesn't hit as hot because it's single stage, but it's just the same, all effective. It just doesn't have as fast of a firing solenoid. The Momentum is select fire, but it has a much faster firing solenoid and is a lot more lightweight of a blaster. So it's more like the difference between your SMG and rifle almost, but for some reason the SMG hits hotter and the rifle hits softer.
You know, video game logic.
Yeah. I've actually gone up against the SBF a number of times recently. So I've actually seen one in person, and I spoke to Ryan about it. He saw them quite frequently being used at the tournament for RAG this year, to great effect.
I know that a bunch of the Singapore people came over with SBFs, and like Gavin had a briefcase full of, I don't know, 20 of them. Or
yeah.
You know, not really, but there are a lot there.
I think
there are a lot of people working on making RAG legal body kits to make it less.
I'm not quite sure what the manufacturing goes into for either of these two, but I do know as well to get a SBF stateside is cheaper than it is to get a Momentum by something to the number of almost $150.
Really?
And SBF by Silver Fox
Industries
is $500 before you add in some additional stuff, at least before you assemble it, from what I'm looking at. I'm gonna like go through all the options real quick here. So yeah, it's $30 more to have it assembled and $12 more for an ATEC magwell, and then you can also add a battery if you want, and then more premium filaments. But with basic filaments, you don't get the ATEC magwell, you get the standard one and without the battery, and you assemble it yourself because it's just plug and play anyways. It's $500 USD. Or Momentum is $650.99 United States dollars. Which I don't think that includes a battery, which is interesting.
That's also interesting. I don't know what goes into Momentum, but I'm pretty sure the SBF has like a full machined cage, doesn't it? With like the B-car on the end.
The SBF, yes, the SBF has a CNC aluminum cage.
It has aluminum cage.
Momentum has SLS printed nylon, if I recall correctly.
So the SBF has a Delrin B-car integrated into the muzzle and a anodized like CNC aluminum cage and then POM wheels. Whereas the I know there are CNC flywheels on the Momentum, and then it has the nylon SLS cage.
Yes, Momentum has machined wheels, nylon cage, and then I think that it has a B-car, but the B-car is just part of the body of the
I don't think it had a B-car, if I recall.
Or whatever.
Because I'm looking.
No, I've seen Momentums with B-cars.
Okay.
From
Interesting.
Out of Darts.
Okay.
Unless I'm mistaken. Let me Google that.
I'm looking at the listing right now, and I don't see a B-car, so maybe it's something people have been adding afterwards.
It's possible.
They were on most of the ones that they had in the launch video, if I recall correctly.
Okay. Anyways,
I would say it's like, there's one thing I would say we could compare this to, and I would say this is the new generation of what the FDL used to kind of be, that really high-end flywheeler, except this looks, no offense to anyone who likes the FDL, SPF looks way cooler. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the FDL is an older technology, and this is an evolution of that same direction of product. Like, of course it is, just because of age. Like, the FDL is the classic version of what we now are seeing in this area. The thing that's interesting to me is that this comes around at a time when the major brands are also getting into flywheelers. And obviously, I don't expect a $100-ish Strife X or Omnia Pro. Obviously, the Omnia is less and the Strife is a little bit more, but or the Mark III for that matter, which are all very capable blasters, especially for their prices.
Especially for the price right now, you can get a Mark III for like freaking $30.
For like $30, yeah, it's wild. I bought a second one when it was on sale for like $80, and I thought I was doing pretty good.
It took the $30 price to get me to finally buy one.
Well, anyway, so with even the major brands kind of getting in on this, a lot of people have been talking recently about AEBs specifically as sort of like the way forward. But now we're seeing a lot more investment in flywheelers, and obviously those things, I don't know, like there's a lot of kind of weird overlap, but also they're very different. Like AEBs share a lot of qualities, both with spring-powered blaster. They are a spring-powered blaster. They share a lot of like functional qualities in game with both in various ways. What, and I know, and Silly, I know you have the Warlock and AEB project that is in the works.
Yep.
What do you think is sort of, obviously there's space for both ultimately in the world.
Oh, of course.
But like, just in what do you think is the way forward? What is the relationship between sort of where flywheelers are going and where AEBs are potentially going? Particularly in like the space of like competitive players who are actually trying to like pick the blaster that they're going to train on and move forward on.
I think put shortly, brushless flywheel blasters are always going to be better for the same cost than an AEG.
Really?
Oh, well, actually,
I would disagree.
See, that is hard to. So let me break this down for a second. 3D printed things are generally more expensive than injection molded things. Always see that in the hobby.
Yeah.
There are injection molded brushless flywheelers, such as the Diana, which are, if I recall correctly, way less expensive than the SBF. Of course, it's less performant, but what's the cost on a Diana? Diana Nerf. Google.
It's also got that really cool idling feature.
Yeah, it's $200 for a Diana. You can get 2 of those for the cost of an SBF, or 3 of those for the cost of a Momentum.
Dual wield.
Yes, so keep that in mind. Printed, more expensive. Then you come into AEGs. They are generally, for the same quality, they are... This is really hard to break down. It's hard to explain the thought process, but AEGs cost a lot to make work well with good quality. You can make a cheaper AEG by using plastic gears, but then it breaks, like the Stampede. You can have an AEG that works pretty well, like the Colonel Wasp 76, that uses metal gears, but it is not even getting close to flywheelers in the same price bracket if you are taking into account injection molding. If you are going for like 3D printed flywheelers, I think that they still beat out the Colonel Wasp 76 in terms of price. But like if you are taking a Colonel Wasp 76, which is $150, and you have a flywheel blaster, which is $150, you can probably get more rate of fire, more FPS, better form factor probably not the same accuracy, but you'll probably do better with a 3D printed flywheeler at 150.
Well, that's what it comes down to, though, because like when you're talking about FPS and you're talking about rate of fire and you're talking about accuracy and those things, you know, being a little bit of like a balanced triangle where it's like, you know, you can have it cheap or quality or quickly, right? And you sort of have to balance those things. That matches playstyle, right? So for a person, for like maybe there is a person for whom the AEB is a better playstyle match, and even though it may not be a as hard of hitting or as high a rate of fire blaster, if it's a better blaster for that person, it doesn't matter if it doesn't hit as hard or shoot as fast. They're going to do better
because always trumps
I would argue there are playstyle.
There are like different use cases, I would say. Like in CQB, flywheelers will always have an edge because you don't need accuracy at 100 feet indoors.
Oh yeah,
you just don't.
We have like funnily enough, even as of recent, we have like a competitively sized field that we've been playing at. But one of our locals, Jeff, he's always been more of a Springer guy, but he bought a Phoenix 2.0 a while back, and he's quite effective with it and can dominate the field. If you give him the opportunity to push up, he will hold you down with the full auto rate of fire faster than you can like get your Springer on site to like target him. So he becomes like a whole nother issue with that on the field now. And especially more so as it's been getting colder, we've been doing CQB. He's been really shining with that lately. So even without necessarily, we're at like 220 FPS and he's hitting maybe 130. So it's like, even without that FPS, he's still quite effective. And it's always kind of just the player, not the blaster, but the blaster is a tool that can help the player.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. I think that, real quickly, generally whenever I do podcasts and stuff like this where you're recording live, I can talk myself into a hole and kind of say wrong things.
I'm going to make it even more dangerous. I'm going to make it even more dangerous and say that you're taking the last word on this topic right now. So make it count.
Great. Awesome. Love it. I said at the beginning that brushless blasters are always going to be better than AEGs for the same price, cost, whatever. I think that AEGs generally do have benefits versus flywheelers and springers in terms of being a good balance of rate of fire, performance, and accuracy. But I think that brushless blasters are always going to have a major edge on AEGs because they're what more of the development time is going into, really. There's not a lot of people doing AEGs. There are some very cool things coming from Colonel Wasp in the next few months, which I can't really go into detail about because NDAs and stuff, but cool stuff. But even then, I don't think that AEGs are going to defeat brushless blasters. I think that it's more... I think that it's a fairer comparison to do non-brushless, so like brushed flywheelers versus AEGs. I think that's a much fairer comparison. So like instead of comparing, a hobby-made AEG, whatever that might be at whatever point, versus an SBF or a Momentum,
right.
I think that it would be better compared to, something like a not a fly core, but one of those brushed Krakens and Fangs and normal motored blasters. Because once you start getting into that whole other price tier that brushless blasters are in, you start getting into like really, really hard to design and manufacture AEGs to match the performance of brushless. If you look at what Eli Wu has done with the not the Momentum, what's his AEG called? Inertia and Impulse. Inertia is like inordinately expensive. It's like 2 Momentums in cost.
Right.
Are you getting 2 Momentums worth of blaster out of it? You're getting super high rate of fire, you're getting accuracy of a Springer, all that stuff. But is that worth $1,000 versus $500.
This is something that comes up a lot in the music world, to make an analogy, because if you're buying a super high end violin for professional orchestral play, the first like $1,000 is about like 75 to 80% of the tone improvements that you can get. Every $1,000 after that is like 5% better, 5% better,
diminishing
2%
returns.
better, 10% better. Pretty soon, but like at that level, it's like you can, as a hobbyist, be like, I want the nicest blaster, and you spend a ridiculous amount of money to get like the top of the line thing. But the better way to do it is when your skills and your ability level and your sort of like detail-oriented needs that increase with your skill make you seek specific things. That's when you spend that extra money to fill those specific needs that you have. Otherwise, you're just kind of throwing money at the wind. And I mean, if you enjoy the cool, fancy thing that you got and you can afford it, that's fine. You should do that. But like generally speaking, that's where these things really come. Someone like Eli Wu, who's a skilled player, is developing these blasters because they fit his needs and like the things that he's seeing that he wants, and it makes sense for him to be doing that. So, I mean, I guess ultimately what we're coming down to here is all of these things can coexist. It depends on the players. Ultimately, it's about the players and it's not about the gear. And with that, we're going to move on to playing What's That Blaster? Because we're running along, which is fine because I'm having an amazing time, but we should keep moving. I
love taking too long to discuss topics. I can talk forever.
It's awesome. This has been a really great conversation, and we have more to talk about. So I want to get to the game. And the way that What's That Blaster works, for anyone not familiar already, like, for example, our guest Sillybutts, one member of the team will read an official Hasbro description from one Nerf brand blaster, with slight modifications, because sometimes like the name of the blaster is in there or the capacity is in there. The ammo type usually get removed. And the rest of the crew, including the guest, gets to guess collectively what the blaster is. We can use, if we guess it without using any lifelines, we get 4 points. Everybody guessing gets 4 points. And if we aren't confident in it, we can use 3 lifelines. For each lifeline we use, we lose a point. Those lifelines are the original release year, the original retail price, and the original stock capacity of the blaster.
Okay.
And currently, I have 32 points. Vile has 29 points. Jolt has 37, and Grimz just overtook Jolt with 38. It is, however...
I'll catch up to you.
Well, and so the guests who are on the board, Not Enough has 3 points. Dart Sweep, Nate, Captain Xavier, and Perry all have 4. American Foam has 2. So...
What's the maximum possible, theoretically?
Well, in any particular game, it's 4. We have a bunch because we play every week, right? But there's sort of like a secondary guest point board, just to like some make it on. Because like Taffy, that was a week we didn't figure it out. Taffy doesn't have any points, nor does Maritime Foam. I think
you'll have to have me back on again so I can catch up.
Well, yeah, first return. Well, so we do. I'm not saying who it is yet, but we do have a returning guest soon who will have a chance to take the lead, but as a guest. But if we have you back after that, you could potentially, especially if we get 4 points today. Captain Xavier, that was a really interesting one. That's worth going back and listening to because he pushed to make the 4-point guess. And
and he was the reason we got the 4-point guess correct. Like he put us in an entirely different direction than what we thought it was going to be the first time.
That was a team effort, and it was a really, really good one. Mm-hmm. Anyway, this episode, it is Grim's turn to pick, so we have an opportunity to jump back up over Grim's score, or at least Vile or Jolt does.
Alrighty then.
And Grim's already has one picked, and of course, audience, if you're playing along at home and you guess before we do, maybe. Let us know in the comments. Be sure to let us know what your score is if you're keeping track. This game is for everybody. Go for it, Grimz. What you got?
All right, gentlemen, you ready? Here's the description.
Okay.
Blank shot barrel automatically advances and launches darts as you pull the trigger. Power up again with pullback blank. Includes blank soft blank darts. That is all.
What? Can
What?
you do it again and just? Well, you got to tell us what the blanks are, though. Not like.
Wait,
Oh, yeah.
are we trying to guess the blaster or the blanks?
We are guessing the blaster, but Grimz, do it again, and because say like
Okay.
Okay.
Do I need to buzz
Yeah,
in?
Say, like-
Or can I just blurt it
so-
out?
no, we'll discuss and then decide
right,
when
so-
we decide
Okay.
the answer. But
Capacity,
yeah, read it again.
capacity shot barrel automatically advances and launches darts as you pull the trigger. Power up again and with pullback, and that is a descriptor of basically the type of blaster it is.
Okay.
Functionality.
Includes blank, which is amount, soft blank darts, which is type of dart.
Okay. Automatic advances
So-
when you pull the trigger. Okay.
Yep, and that one had the capacity. Power up again with pullback, and that's the type of blaster it is. Includes capacity, soft, dart type darts.
Okay.
Well, it's not the
Okay,
Maverick.
I think I might know what this is.
We've already done the Maverick. What else advances on
Oh,
trigger
okay.
pull?
Oh, there are no duplicates?
Correct.
No, we don't do duplicates.
I see. Okay, I was going to
It
say
also has to be Nerf.
Maverick.
It has to be Nerf brand specifically, so that way it
Wait-
keeps it within.
I see.
Yeah.
We also had a situation where the Maverick got picked twice because Grimz wasn't on the episode where the Maverick happened.
Nah.
And so that already
It's even
that
funnier
already
the
happened
third
once.
time.
So yeah, we are definitely not doing the Maverick a third time. I promise.
Nope.
you.
Have you guys done the Firefly yet?
That was the other one that I was thinking, but I don't hear any language about glow in the dark.
That's true.
Yeah, I would
the
expect
Firefly
that.
is basically just a Maverick with a flashlight in
Yeah.
the face.
Isn't it-
It's
wait, isn't
internally,
it
it's
more-
direct
isn't it-
plunger. It's actually better, despite being an overall
Isn't it-
worse
Yeah,
blaster.
isn't it more shots?
Whatever.
It is.
It's a
It is a similar-
revolvery
okay.
The
thingy.
Fury
Regardless,
Fire would
what-
be another guess, is because that one is a Maverick inside. That one does rotate on trigger pull, but there's no language about any of the Velcro.
Okay, wait. Do you have this written down somewhere where I can look at it, or is that not allowed? The text of this description.
I wouldn't say it's not allowed, but we don't usually do it, and so it's probably
I can-
it's
the spirit of the
probably not
game.
prepared.
I have the
Okay.
text actually written down. That's how I did the blanks. So I could post it in the Discord VC
Yeah,
chat.
you can just drop it in the Discord chat.
All right.
I mean, that's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
think it's against the spirit of the game. We just don't.
No,
usually
it's
do
just
that.
it's just an unprecedented thing. Sure, here you go.
I cannot remember. Well, what? Okay, so it's probably a revolver because it's
Yeah.
indexing per trigger pull. They don't mention the type of dart. You said that
I mean,
it needs to be a Nerf blaster,
just to be
like
clear,
Nerf.
to be clear, the description would mention the type of dart. That has
We
been
just omitted. So
Right,
because
right,
that
it's in
right.
between
we've learned
soft.
that is too
Well,
obvious.
like it could be a rival blaster. It could be.
Yeah.
I mean,
old school
what we
Mega, it could be whatever.
can like it is there wouldn't be a blank if it wasn't a named dart type, but it could just be like
Mhm.
elite.
Exactly.
Right. Advances on trigger pull.
Yeah, what else advances on trigger pull? I feel like that's our big.
Do you guys have like
Snapfire
a
8,
general year range?
nail
Well,
biter.
no, we don't, and we would have to use that lifeline if we wanted the release year.
I would actually
Okay,
go
yeah,
for the
yep,
release
yep,
year.
yep,
I
got
would
it.
go for the release year on this one, personally.
No,
Or capacity.
I don't remember what the description was, so I want to give that a read over before I jump through.
So your three options for lifelines are stock capacity, release year, and retail price.
I personally,
So if
I
you
don't
click
think
on
we have enough to go on. So I would vote we use one of our lifelines because we don't have enough to go on here. It's just
yeah,
Yeah,
so you
we're-
can either pick
Hey.
capacity,
Well,
release year,
This is
or
unusually
retail.
challenging because it is an extremely short
Oh.
description.
Wait. Shot barrel automatically advances and launches darts as you pull the trigger. Automatically. I think that this might be the Snapfire,
Snapfire
the
8.
thing that primes on the trigger pull and fires at the same time from the dart tag line with the yellow
yeah, the
and gray shell.
Snapfire 8, which is why I think capacity would help us here. Because there are only so many, because that one would be 8, and the only one that I could think of that would even come close to that would be the nail biter, but this has none of the normal zombie strike description, so it can't be that.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say I vote that we do capacity.
That
All
power
right, I'm
up
just
again with,
gonna.
with pullback
I
is
go for release
confusing.
here, honestly.
Capacity shot barrel automatically advances and launches darts as you pull the trigger. Power up again with pullback. Is it powering up multiple shots, or is that with each
I don't think that's
charge?
a thing.
Power up again with pullback. I can't think of something that would pull back and charge you for multiple shots.
Oh wait, no, okay. I was gonna go. What was the thing on the Unity power system with 6 barrels?
The Hornet? But that's a
Hornet?
that's a pump.
Hornet. I was thinking Hornet, but they don't mention a pump.
That's a pump,
anywhere.
yeah.
Because that thing you can like pull forwards the front, and they use that as a marker.
And nothing
explicitly
automatically
says-
advances.
It does explicitly say to power up with a pullback.
Yeah.
I suggest this idea of pulling back to fire. That's the way it reads, but that is the kind of thing that has been a red herring before. These descriptions are frequently not accurate, is the other thing. That's one of the things that throws us off often. But I do think advances on trigger pull is something that we can count on.
We can work. I
would vote for like release year as the list if we were going to go for
What would we?
But that
narrow
depends on whether
down
we would know the release year of the blaster. That's the thing. If given the release year,
I
will we
have
be able to guess?
encyclopedic knowledge of every blaster known to man.
Here's the thing. Here's the other thing. I feel like capacity would give us more ideas. Because right now, I don't feel like we have a solid guess. Normally, when we use lifelines, we're using it to narrow down solid guesses that we have. And we're in a state where we don't have one. But I think that if we ask for capacity, that will give us at least like a list of things that we can start to narrow it down from.
Yeah,
Does that make
I think
sense?
capacity would work fine.
Because like
Yeah,
if we hear 6, we can name like 10 blasters, 20 blasters that have 6-round capacity, and then we've truly like made at least a list to start from.
But if it's like some weird
yeah,
number like 8 or 4,
that would narrow it down even more.
exactly.
Of course. Yep. All
Okay,
right.
are we ready
I
to
think
do that? Is that okay, Vile?
I think
Yeah,
let's
that
do
sounds good.
All right.
think we
So
can
stock capacity, yes.
Stock capacity, please.
So your lifeline for stock capacity is 4 darts.
4 darts. Interesting.
All right.
I wonder if this is.
Darts.
I almost would guess either the Voidcaster, but that doesn't have a pullback anything. Or another guess would be
No.
the Quadrant.
I was gonna say quadrant, or what's the AccuStrike one?
That is the Quadrant.
Yeah.
Oh, is that the quadrant?
That's the
Oh,
quadrant.
there you go.
I can't remember Nerf brand names anymore.
That was
That's
my
like
first
the-
thought.
The revolver,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, that was the really
four-shot
crappy
revolver.
revolver with like the slot going down the plunger tube. And then there was an elite version called the
Shot
Scout
barrel
Mark II.
automatically advances and launches darts as you pull the trigger. Power up again with pullback mechanism. Includes 4 darts of whatever
Yeah,
flavor.
because dart type could be AccuStrike.
Wait. What was the lifeline that we used?
It was
Capacity.
capacity. It was
Included
stock
ammo count
capacity.
or capacity?
Stock
That's-
capacity.
Okay, we used capacity.
Do we have anything?
Interesting.
Do we have any? What else is 4 shots that advances on trigger pull?
Well, that could also be just the like smart AR system.
What about the Rattler?
Well, but then if it's a smart AR system, how is it automatically advances?
Because you're advancing every
Because
single
Hasbro.
dart. Every dart that it fires, it automatically advances.
I guess you're right.
It can't be the Rattler because the Rattler does not have a trigger.
Oh,
Wait,
that's
is
right.
the Rattler? Is that
It's
Max
a
Force?
Max Force blaster.
Yeah, Max Force from 1994.
I will
with the
say
weird
one thing we've
noodle
learned
arm.
is that the descriptions from that era read really differently. This does
Okay,
not
I
sound
see.
like that old of a description.
Hmm.
They didn't talk really about like the functionality of the blaster in the same way.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, what else is 4 darts? Because
I really can only think of like the Quadrant, the Scout Mark II, which is basically the same freaking thing. And
what is different about the Scout Mark II?
it is a different shape. It is literally a quadrant on the inside. It's just painted. It's in that elite. It's like in the Infinus style. You know, the black, gray, and blue with the tiger camo.
Oh
that.
yeah. I know what you're talking
thing.
about.
That looks nothing like the original Scout.
Do we think that that's more likely than the quadrant, maybe because it doesn't say anything about accuracy, like the accuracy?
That, and it's such an obscure blaster. They only came out at, like, what was it? Family Dollar and Ross and places like that.
Okay.
I never saw one of those in a major
Is there a
store.
significant release year difference between the two of those? Would that be worth getting that lifeline?
Maybe. Actually, maybe not. I don't think
Does
that would do
I
it.
don't
No,
think
they
so.
were
I think that they were
around
like
the same
really
time.
close.
Yeah, now that I think about it, yeah, they were.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of any 4-round revolvers that also existed, because it's like there aren't very many 4-round revolvers.
No.
No. Okay. Elite. Okay. Would they generally say stuff about accuracy with AccuStrike
That would-
blasters
yeah.
that would be
Yeah.
devoid from Elite? I think so.
I think so. I mean, that's been our
And it
experience.
would generally be in that same sentence. So if we were trying to choose between those two,
Right.
then it would probably be the whatever it was, the blue one.
Yeah.
Words.
I think my best guess is going to be the Scout Mark II. I don't feel super confident in that, but I think it's the best guess that I have personally.
Why is it a Mark II? What was the Mark I?
The Mark I is the little slide action single shot from the Unity power system. Like I said, the name makes no sense.
Oh yeah,
That's so weird.
I don't know why they
forgot
called
about
it that.
I really like the Scout Mark one.
The Scout's fun. The real Scout Mark II is the side strike, and we all know it.
Maritime Foam was
Yes.
supposed to give me one of those, and he forgot to bring it when we met up at Maryland Mayhem.
Ooh.
It's the only piece I'm missing of my Unity power system. Anyway, okay. Do we just want to roll with that? It's,
You know what?
We're kind
I
of
think-
50-50ing it, but I don't
think-
know what other 4-dart auto-advancing blaster would make sense.
Me
I'm
neither.
thinking Scout.
God, if
Yeah,
it's the,
Scout Mark II.
If it's
'Cause
the
I can't think of
AccuStrike
any
one,
other
we're going to be
things.
so...
If it's the quadrant, I'm gonna scream.
You can blame me if it's the AccuStrike one.
Okay, I'm
Alright.
with Silly on this. I think Scout Mark II.
Vile, are you good on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot, and in all honesty, it's kind of a this description doesn't give much to go off of.
No, it
so-
really doesn't. Okay.
No.
Again,
So-
my only contribution is that it could actually be a smart AR based on it being "quote unquote" automatically advancing.
Oh my
It
God.
could.
But
Is this-
and
because
we've seen them
Hasbro.
do that with their
I know.
like with how
Yes,
they write this.
yes,
So
they
that's
definitely
why.
red herring
Yep.
it. But like, what
Yep.
smart AR 4-dart thing would it even be?
Quadrot,
I mean, again-
Fang QS4,
Yeah,
all
Quadrot
19
comes
different
from-
reskins of the
yeah.
Fang.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah,
4
yeah.
VIX, but this doesn't read like the Rebel
It's not a
line.
rebel. It's not a rebel.
You know,
script.
like
No,
there's
no.
so many. Yeah, there's so many. Weird
There's no
ones.
mentions of accuracy,
Yeah.
which would generally be AccuStrike.
Yeah.
There's
Okay.
no mentions of pink prettiness,
Let's
which
just-
would be Rebel.
Rebel, what Rebel really does is language about like going on missions with friends. That's
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah, yeah,
missions
yeah.
and friends and like spy stuff and secret messages. Like that's what it really talks about more than
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
prettiness. Okay, let's do it. Scout Mark II.
All right, so is
Right.
this your final answer?
Yeah.
Yep.
Alrighty,
Yep.
you all would be incorrect.
Okay. Before
Darn
you
it.
tell us what the correct answer is, give us the other lifelines for the folks at home.
All right, so for all of you at home, the 3 lifelines are: stock capacity is 4, release year is 2002 with a retail price of $4.99. It is the AT1K.
No!
What?
You're kidding me!
That right next to
I
me.
specific
That is literally next
I
to my desk.
specifically chose the AT1K when I was eating my dinner because I knew Sillybutts would be on here. So I thought if anyone could save it, it could have been
Freaking
Sillybutts.
AirTac! Bruh.
Why would you do this to me?
It does rotate on trigger pull! Oh my
Yeah, it sure
word!
does.
How did I
It
forget
also
that
primes
exists?
from the back with a pump. So when I said mechanism, it says air pump as the mechanism.
It's also
Oh,
such a
it-
garbage. Wait.
What?
What?
4-shot barrel automatically advances and launches darts as you pull the trigger. Power up again with pullback air pump. Includes 4 soft foam suction
You pull,
darts.
Whoa,
even
whoa, whoa,
it's
whoa,
not
whoa.
on the
The
back.
red herring.
You pull it back towards you.
What?
No. Wait a second. What blaster is this? Exact name.
AirTech 1000 AT1K.
The AirTech 1000 is a Springer blaster.
Yeah, it's a red
Why
herring.
does it say air pump? What is?
The AirTech 1000 is a Springer blaster, and it's the only Springer blaster on the AirTech line or the Supermax line because Nerf hates
But
you.
here's the thing that
The
we've seen.
AT2K is the pump blaster with.
I
We've
thought it was
seen
an
it,
air
though.
blaster when I picked it because it said air pump.
No, but here's
Amazing.
the thing.
That's a
And
Springer.
we have seen it because it's part of the AirTech line. They will reuse terminology because most of the line was
Yeah,
actually air powered.
They copy and paste.
no.
Yeah.
Terrible.
That's-
They
that's
copy
They'll
and
do
paste
that.
descriptions.
Yeah, they will do that.
Amazing. Either way,
Oh.
unfortunately,
We
That's
were
funny.
so off.
That's a good one.
I remember-
but I completely disregarded it because I knew how it actually works. Well, no, I didn't, but
Actually, given how
No,
it
you
actually
said that
works, this
after
would have
my
actually
Twitter.
fit it exactly, pretty much, from what the information we had.
Well,
yeah. And of course, that thing does rotate on
I
trigger
keep
pull
forgetting
because,
that thing exists,
you know,
because that and
early
like the Supermax
thing.
versions of that are just so
The
forgettable.
Supermax 350.
well, congratulations, Grimz. You have protected your 1 point lead against Jolt King.
Fun fact, just quickly about that blaster. If you ever look on the inside, it's identical to basically all of the early Busby Springers, because they were designed by the same person, pretty much.
Exactly. Yep.
All right, we have questions for the hosts now from our Ko-Fi subscribers. Let's try to kind of rocket through these because we got one more big topic that I really want to cover. Teacup Story asks us, if you had to try out a new hobby for a week and report the news on it, what would it be?
try out a new hobby.
Well, specifically, I
Report.
think to report as a news thing instead of this one. I mean, it would be really easy for me to say that I would do the Pokemon TCG. I would certainly enjoy that, but
That's not a new
it's-
hobby for you.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a. I mean, I don't.
You had to
I'm not.
try a
Hold
new
on.
hobby.
I'm not clear if this means like a new hobby that you've never done before, or just a new hobby that you've never like done content creation for before, like new to making content creation. That's how I interpreted the question.
Knowing
right,
Teacup,
like-
it's probably actually trying a whole new hobby. Because
Oh.
if you know me, I am a hobby enthusiast of every hobby out there. I just do
Yeah.
everything.
Your hobby
So-
is hobbies.
Yeah, my hobby is hobbies. So this is probably in that realm because this one is a question I can't answer because I'm like, what haven't I done? It's really
Nothing.
weird.
Nothing is a new
Deep
hobby.
sea diving.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there you go.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
oh,
I don't know.
I
I would
actually, you know what? I have my answer.
Yeah.
It is the weirdest thing, but I would like to get into metal detecting actually of like on beaches and stuff. There I've always been interested in metal
that's a whole
detecting.
thing.
That's a good answer.
And it sounds like such an old man hobby, but for some reason I really love just how metal detectors work, and I think they're really neat. And I've seen people who are in like sort of they're in not like scuba diving gear, but they're in they have like snorkels, and they're basically at the shallow part of like a very calm beach, and they go through them with an underwater metal detector, and they'll get stuff in the sand and soot and stuff, or silt that's right there, and
Yeah.
that's what they do. For some reason, that when Silly mentioned diving, I was like, oh, wait a minute, I forgot about this thing, and it's something I've never tried and always thought was just kind of neat to do.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Just to be clear, deep sea diving was my recommendation for something that you haven't done.
Yeah.
I could not do that. That's scary.
yeah, so
Anyone-
that's my answer.
Anyone else got one? I feel like I
So-
would probably do some kind of like design type thing, or something that like I don't do currently as a hobby, but something that I'm already like involved in. So like I don't know.
So
I'm not
if
sure.
we're
Go ahead,
going
Greg.
on the interpretation of something we just haven't done the news on, like ET had originally done, I would say potentially either Magic the Gathering or Airsoft. I used to be in the Airsoft community, so I'd know where to look for sources. The only reason for Magic the Gathering, I've never played the game personally, but I have a lot of friends that are interested into it.
Mm.
And it's also a Hasbro line product, so I'd know where to look for sources on it. And it's a
Right.
game I've wanted to get into myself anyways. If we're talking something completely different off of what we're currently doing, what would I choose?
That's hard. It's such a like
See,
out there question.
I
Yeah.
wanted to get into like cars and car modification. I know zero things about cars.
I
like,
thought about
zero.
that for a second,
cars.
too.
Cars is a good answer. That'd probably be mine
I
as
can
well.
do cars when I have to, but like I definitely don't consider it a hobby. But like
I've
I
never-
would love if I was gonna pick a hobby out of nowhere, I would probably want to pick something useful.
Mhm.
like car repair or like
Woodworking.
Yeah,
I was gonna say
woodworking,
that. I'd
something
love to do
functional
First
like that.
aid.
woodworking would be so cool.
My next choice would have been like sword play, but that's something I'm already used to do as a hobby, so I
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
choose that one. So it's like
It's funny. Most of the stuff y'all are mentioning here are hobbies I have been in or am still kind of in at some capacity. I'm like, oh, cars. Yeah. Oh,
Okay,
woodworking.
jack of
Oh, I
all
used to work
trades.
millwork.
You are the inroad
Yeah.
for the other
I
hosts.
do all these things.
For me, I think
Um,
a good one will be blacksmithing. I think that would be super
yeah.
That's
cool.
cool.
that's something
I
I've
like
already
that.
looked into, so that's why I couldn't choose that one.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Be the first person to blacksmith a blaster.
my
Yeah.
word.
Actually, I have a friend that's done exactly that.
Oh really?
Aw.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Wild.
One of my friends from the History of Nerf Modding project has blacksmith like a pull for like a knife finder or
That's
something like that.
Ridiculous. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a cool guy.
Iron Gopher asks, what has been an unforeseen challenge or unexpected boon in taking on this hobby reporting role? How do you feel about the project now that you're a year in? And when will we be getting hot Cheetos in the green room? More of the first parts of that question, I think.
Yeah. So
Because I can't eat hot Cheetos. I can't.
Yeah, I can't tolerate spice of any
Oh, I
variety.
can tolerate the spice. I can't tolerate the dairy.
Unforeseen challenge was, I guess, I knew it was going to be a time investment, even with the team. I just wasn't expecting how much of a time investment it could be sometimes, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well,
and it's so. I mean, one of the things I think about this a lot too, because like I've done so much work in the arts, and the way that time commitments work in the arts is different than the way like if you have a day job, most of the time, you're on the clock and then you're off the clock. And so like there's a major time commitment in terms of the amount of time, but when it's 5 o'clock and you punch your card, you don't have to think about it at all. And the arts tend to not work that way, and this feels a lot more like an art sort of situation to me.
Yeah,
where it's like we have a production schedule, and you got to be on because we have to make the deadline.
Mhm.
And that is something that I'm very used to.
I mean, I guess I'm kind of used to it because I did that all of last year with my videos. I kept a schedule for uploads, so I'd prepare videos in advance. It's just with that, if I had an idea, I could bang it out earlier and have it ready and out the door months in advance and schedule them.
Right.
With the news, it's
But we're reacting
limited
to the news
live as it comes out. And so the other unexpected challenge was actually scripting. So like everything else hasn't been mostly more of the same. It's been scripting. Script writing, that's what takes the number one thing that takes me the most time is writing a script for this stuff.
Well, you're trying to
that is-
research. Yeah, you have to because we're trying to get data from sometimes multiple places. And
it's not even necessarily the researching the data that's hard, because I was already doing that in my off time outside of stuff to keep myself informed. It's the comprising or compartmentalizing and turning all of that knowledge into a condensed readable script that's easily digestible to the viewer.
That's
so you're
kinda what
taking
I
all
mean,
this
though.
information. Yeah.
That's what I mean is you're condensing it all into something that's digestible for the end user. That's hard because you're, again, sometimes like me and KT have gone down I don't know how many rabbit holes for weird subjects, and and sometimes it can take up hours of getting data from this person, taking notes from this thing, watching this video, this person, watching that video at 1.75 speed so that way I can get through it faster. And, like we've done all these things. And then you have to somehow take notes and then make it, coherent.
It's kind of
some
also been this
capacity.
weird thing because since I'm nocturnal and you guys aren't, it means I'm up. It's like, all right, good night, guys. Here's what I need to do. I do those things. I write those scripts. Then I go to bed and I have them sent. And then I wake up to like them being edited by KT. And then I have to they're probably towards the end of their day. So then I have to squeeze everything in with that time period.
That's been kind of a big thing, I think, with us as a team that a lot of people may not really understand is we're all not only in different time zones, but on different sleep schedules. Jolt is...
I am
Jolt
a
works through
third
the
shift
night.
stalker, so I am up all night. And actually, this is what I wanted to say. My unexpected thing is trying to film around a third shift schedule with parents who I can't film when they are sleeping.
Oh yeah, I can't film when people are asleep either in my house. So I have this weird thing where I'm up late at night script drafting. the script drafting the night before. If I have scripts that were already drafted and edited, I film those at like 7 or 8 in the morning, and then I go to bed. And then after I have the other ones sent in for review, as soon as I get them back, I either have to film them within a certain amount of time before people start going to bed.
So if I ever look like dead,
I have to do it in the morning.
It's because I'm literally recording that like right before I need to go to bed.
I think one of the big things for me, and this wasn't fully unexpected, but the degree to which it was true was unexpected, is the amount that we sort of have to navigate things that feel like sensitive or personal, because we're reporting on hobby news, and the goal of reporting the show is to boost things that are happening in the hobby and to boost hobby creators and to make that information more well known and to make the hobby like safer and easier and more widely available. And the number of stories that have been like, I have to get into like hours of legalese stuff and like digging through old C-SPAN things or like researching like law in other countries and just like stuff that feels like on the face value it's not related to the hobby in any way, but I know that there's an important end goal in doing that. But like,
how much freaking C-SPAN did you watch for the regulation change again?
So much. Vile and I were just like digging and digging.
Yeah.
But I found, and I'm still proud of this, that special report contains literally the moment that original rule was signed into, and I like, I'm amazed that I found it because it wasn't even tagged in the episode. And I still think that that's really interesting to have a record of that and to know that exists. So yeah, just, I don't know, like the sheer amount of just sort of like off topic feeling, but important for the work, like research and digging and time that I've had to spend. I expected that I would have, 2 episodes ago, I had to pull an all-nighter. I'm concerned that tonight's going to be a late one too, but, I expected some things like that to happen over the course of producing the show, but this was more challenging, and maybe some of that just comes from my own desire to push things that I think are important to their logical conclusion, and I think multiple of us share that conviction, and amplify each other in that way. But I also think that results in the best. The other thing is the amount of research that we do that goes nowhere.
Yeah.
We do so much digging into stories that we either wind up cutting or going down a whole road on something that turns out to like not make sense to include time in the episode.
The one that has stuck with me for all this time was the hours upon hours I tore into researching the Harrier one, only for it to turn out that the worker that we were debating as to whether or not was really worker was not worker, and so therefore the story could not be aired.
That's right. Oh God.
That script was so long. That script was so long.
Yeah, and we just cut the whole thing. It just didn't make sense.
I think it was like 2 episodes before launch day for that episode too.
Yeah.
For a boon, I would say the people who I'm really impressed with the amount of people that have helped to gather story for us.
Yeah, I wasn't. I was gonna be. That was one of the things I was gonna say. I wasn't expecting how much support we were going to get. I sort of thought we'd maybe have a couple hundred subscribers by the end of the year, and we'd have like a small niche audience, and this would just be a small side thing. I didn't expect. I've gotten people telling me it's like, hey, this has filled the spot that I wanted with like other news shows. I really enjoy this, and this is what I enjoy about yours quite a bit. Or like I remember. I got a DM from Charles after the episode with the seagull in it. It was a discussion, and he was just like, I was watching the video and I got to the segment where you talked about the seagull on the news. The gag that you guys did in the episode made me laugh so much that I had to pause the episode for 5 minutes before I could resume. That is the single, I think, like made my day comment I had received
wonderful.
in a while. I was just like,
Yeah.
"Yep, we're doing. I'm doing what I'm wanting to be doing. This
That's
is
wonderful.
fun. People are enjoying it. They're having fun with it. This makes me happy."
I mean, this happened with me on. I reached out to Ezekiel, Create with Ezekiel about the Spring tool, and I was having a little discussion on Facebook, and he actually said, "Oh yeah, I heard you talking about that on the podcast," and I was like, "You listen to the podcast?" So it was like such a really interesting thing to see. Like, I didn't really get into this to think of like, oh yeah, I'm going to be meeting a lot of interesting designers and people, and where we would have such a broad reach. I never thought, like, same like what you were saying. I didn't think we would have the subscriber count. I was in the same boat. Like, oh, this is a fun project. Let's do this.
I was
And
just sort of
now-
like, I wanted to do the news for a while, and
Yeah,
I
it
have
just
these
sounded
friends
fun.
in another server. If
Yeah.
they want to do the news with me, it would be fun if I got to do something I love with my other friends. And now it's just a thing.
yeah,
well, and
exactly.
I feel like we are contributing to the hobby in a real way, which feels great as a way to like give back.
Yeah.
It's what
For
Silly
sure.
was talking about earlier with just like wanting to make the hobby a better place. And I think that we're offering something that's important. And when I hear someone like Captain Xavier, Shayla was saying, like, he doesn't have time to keep up on all the stuff that's happening. Like, if he knows about something, it's because like a company sent him something or messaged him about it. But he watches our show now because it's a complete recap of the last 2 weeks. And I think I
Condensed.
hear that from a lot of people, that it's like, it's condensed, it's entertaining, it's
I think
as
we've kept
complete
most
as
of
we
our
can be.
episodes around like 10 minutes, somewhere in there. I think maybe 20.
I watch every video as soon as it comes out.
Aw.
I have notifications.
Aw,
Oh,
that
that's
means a lot,
wonderful.
man.
It's so good.
Based
rang the
Foom News
bell.
Collective subscriber and bell ringer.
Sure to smash that subscribe button, everybody.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, okay. Yeah, and hot Cheetos in the green room, never. How do we feel about the project now that we're a year in? Great. I feel really good about the project.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how long we'd keep doing this. I wasn't sure if something else would come around. That's why we had the provisional for the long time, and we might step in. But I'm just kind of like, I'm enjoying this a lot. I am in it for the long haul. I will be around as long as I possibly
Totally.
can be here for.
Same. I'm in
If
the
I'm
same
gonna
boat.
dig into that question though, like, because
I am both proud of how we've turned out, and also thinking to myself, why did I do this?
Yeah, so like, I know that I have to. They're like, there's always things that we want to improve, and there's always going to be, things that we want to change and ways that we want to push forward, and like we're already kind of looking at year 2 and all these little things that we want to tweak. We've already made one big transition this year with the name change, and like we changed the format like
The
2
amount of time we
times.
also spent on the graphics and like reforming how
Oh my
the show
God.
visually looks. Like me and you spent hours on that, and
Yeah,
I'm so
the
happy
week-
with how that
The
turned
week
out.
that we did that, it was an off week, and we basically did an entire extra show's worth of work, if not more, on redesigning the show. And I'm so glad we did, because it looks
I'm in love with how the show looks. I'm like,
it looks so good.
this looks and fits how we actually sound now, and the amount of time we actually put into doing the show.
And yet we still have farther to go.
Oh yeah, I'm confident there are greater heights yet to reach and more we can improve on, and I'm all here for that.
So yeah, I feel how I feel after a year is onward and upward. This is the kind of project that it's endless until it ends. Like, it's not a project that you go like, all right, 10 more episodes and then we're done. Like, no, 10 more episodes.
It's also
and then there's
like,
more news.
it's not like the news is ever going to stop coming. So there will be a topic there for us to work on for as long as we're still around to do it, essentially. Yeah. So the real question is, how long are we going to commit to it? And I just say, let's see how long we can take it.
Well, and on a related note, our next topic is sort of a continuation of a previous topic that we've talked about in the past. We've had a lot of Nerf tubers quitting the YouTube game this year.
Everyone bites the dust.
Two more bit the dust. And not to suggest this time around it's American Foam and Nerf Talk. American Foam, of course, has a much longer history much higher subscriber count. A lot more people, I think, are familiar with Brad's work. But also, like, some of us, particularly me and Jolt, have been following Nerf Talk, like, since the beginning of his channel, and I think had a little bit more of a connection to his work, too. But he grew fast and then sort of capped out. And that's a feeling that I understand. I feel like Family Foam Sports kind of did that. Family Foam Sports like half the size in terms of subscriber count as, or not half. I guess I meant like 2, and he was at like 3.4 or something. But I think the key thing that I want to get to when we talk about this is you look at pretty much all except for Coop of these people that have been ending their channels, like Nerf Taiwan, right? Stopped making videos. We still have a leak from him in this episode. He's not gone. It's just that it seems like all these folks, there's nothing wrong with the hobby. They're not leaving the hobby. They're leaving video production. They're leaving YouTube because it's a black hole where creativity goes to die sometimes. And so much emphasis is put on short form content, both on YouTube and on TikTok and on Instagram. And I think for a lot of people who started with longer form videos, that feels real bad for valid reasons. And the ideas that you can portray in that time are very different. The way that people consume and engage with that content is very different. But you also still see people doing other new and creative things. Captain Xavier is a great example of someone who has not gotten caught in what we're always talking about as the review grind. He sort of has his own vibe of videos that he makes. I'm very that's one of the things, speaking about how I feel about this show after a year. I'm so glad that we do this because this feels like a productive way to use video production to communicate with the hobby. I don't obviously, like, there's a grind to what we do. We're always trying to keep up with the news and be ahead of things and make sure that we're catching all the important stuff. And we have to report on things whether we like them or not. But it feels really productive. Whereas reviewing the 20th Nerf blaster that is effectively identical does not feel productive.
Yeah, we had that discussion with Brad last time.
The stuff where it looks like it's literally oh wow, it's a 6-round revolver that primes in the rear and has slam fire. Haven't seen 15 of those before.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it shoots 70
you know
to
what
80
it is
FPS.
before you even open the box.
And Vile, as you're saying, we talked with Brad about this just a few episodes ago, and lo and behold, since then, he quit the YouTube game, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And it was crazy because I went back to listen to the podcast because I was like, I know we covered this. This is exactly what we were talking about, and he was right, you know. And he obviously he got to that point, and he asked himself, "Is this really worth it anymore?" He's just not enjoying it. And I think offhandedly, either it might have been off, or maybe it was somewhere in the episode. I think we had mentioned something about if it's no longer fun, it's not worth really doing anymore. You know, the whole point of really getting into this is if you're enjoying what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
I kind of had put one thing, I guess, for an analogy's sake. The way I kind of see what we do versus what someone, say, for example, doing a review differently is, say, for example, just for the sake of this, your target demographic is a working 35-year-old that's like tired after a long day's work and just wants to enjoy something. So when you're a review video, that person is going to have very limited time and is very tired and is just going to want to watch something quite short. So say they watch your video. Who's to say with a review, if they have someone else that they prefer to watch that through, they're just going to watch that other person, because if everyone has the same thing they're talking about, it kind of feels like you're just throwing air out into the void that they can get elsewhere unless you're genuinely providing a different experience. And so it can get a lot more easy to burn out. Whereas here, there are a lot less people covering the news. And when we throw that out there, I can confirm, I can like firmly within my heart look at the view count and say, even if it was like, say, 100 views, 100 of those people got easily digestible news that they couldn't have gotten elsewhere, and probably made their time in the hobby a lot easier that week because they were able to understand everything that just happened within those last 2 weeks that they wouldn't have necessarily had the time to do otherwise. So even if we weren't doing as well view count, I can be more confident that what I'm doing is the right thing. Whereas if I was doing reviews, less views makes you feel a lot worse, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, we discussed it in that last podcast, both of us, Grimz, where we had actually both said we found ourselves like dipping our toes into the review, and then we said, you know what? I don't think I want my content to be that, and we both pulled away,
exactly.
And we mentioned that to Brad. So it's one of those things, and like Not Enough is a good example of somebody who's like that. He does do reviews, but he still does the modding side, and he does, now he's got his own stuff, and he's he's got that energy to do it because he's really enjoying what he's doing.
He's frequently looking for unique angles to look at things. So rather than just doing a straight right, like he didn't even do a full review of like the Elite Junior stuff. He like immediately did a mod on the on the 4-shot that was amazing, like totally amazing, like unique, rebuilding the ARs, ridiculously cool stuff. That's what I love. That's what I love seeing, right? I love seeing the like the more unique concepts around videos, great gameplay footage that people do, humorous videos, all that stuff is where I think we really shine. And I think that there was this idea of the like there was a period of time where there were quite a few like younger, newer YouTubers who were trying to like specifically copy like Coop's review style or Drax's review style.
Yes,
and there was like
that.
very much a standardized, like, you do this list of things. And so like to watch a young reviewer who like
here up the front we have an end strike barrel lug.
Right.
I mean,
and making all the same jokes.
I kind of did a similar thing for a minute too. So it's like I think was one of those guys.
I think we all did, like, to some degree. I think we all sort of like accepted that there was like because I remember seeing a lot of these young reviewers, like, they didn't own a chronograph, but they would get to the point of a review where Coop would normally give the chrono numbers, and they would just be like saying like, well, I don't have a chronograph, but it shoots harder than this, or it shoots softer than that. It's like, I don't need to hear that from you. I'll go somewhere with someone who has a chronograph. Give me something that's unique about your outlook on the black. My goal when I started doing reviews was, I have a unique angle to all these other people. I'm going to talk about it as a parent and in the position where I can put this blaster in kids' hands, and I can try and like take things in that angle, and I'm talking to a different target audience. Even then, it was really easy to get stuck in the trap of like, I need to check all these boxes of the like overview, chrono readings, firing footage, final thoughts, like, but like, there's so many people doing that. Yeah. And the blasters are all the same. So
I want to kind of say, as someone who runs a smaller channel, I think I have the smallest channel out of everyone here. Mine has grown exponentially, like, slower. I think I started like 2019, I want to say, and I'm at 200 some subscribers, I think. For a while I did dip into the review content, but I think reason I didn't burn out per se is my reasons why I've been doing the content have changed over time. But I think where I'm at right now that I've enjoyed with this stuff is towards the end, I started changing my reviews to be a bit more of my personal. I tried to keep it objective, but then including my personal opinions and keeping my own unique takes on my experiences with the product. And then I would average out, if as far as performance went, I would average out all the results from all the other creators. So I'd check them, and then I'd average those numbers typically. So that way I got a more collective thing.
Right.
But the main kind of draw, I guess, to my channel, and the reason I'm satisfied with my size and where I'm at, is I've noticed I'm really bad about keeping in contact with my hobby friends. So what I've liked about my channel is it's kind of like a catalog of what I'm up to. And it's almost a way of like, I've said this multiple times, but anyone who I know in the hobby that I consider someone I talk with probably at this point has either been subscribed or seen a couple of my videos, and they've mentioned this before. Like it'll get up in a discussion. It's like, oh, I didn't know Grimz did video. And then someone else who I've talked with for a while is like, oh yeah, they've been doing this for years or something like that. So it's just sort of like a way, the people who I care about their opinions about stuff.
It's community oriented. It's more about
they already
than about
see,
trying to like build a brand.
They already see what I'm doing and they already watch the content. Eventually, of course, I'd like to make more stuff that is more outward facing, but it doesn't have to be, because I'm not doing it at a pace in which it's taking my everything. I'm doing it at a leisurely pace that I enjoy. And because I already have other things like in of this, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it not ever passing 1,000 subscribers. I'm okay with the views staying within like a couple hundred to like 50 views. It's fine.
I think part of the like Coop effect was this idea that content about new products needed to be like objective and entirely fact based. And it's like, it's nice to have metrics on things. And I've, as I've said a couple times, like Coop like almost accidentally created probably the most complete record of firing footage of stock blasters for the time period that he was active. Like you can go back and be like, oh, what was that blaster? You can see it being shot in a consistent way, like back to back with a whole bunch of other blasters. But like the idea that like your opinion is less important, which is funny to say because like we're doing the news and we sort of like work to strip to some degree opinions out of the stories. Because that like that's not the role that we're trying to play. That's what the podcast is for, right? Like we get to ramble about our thoughts on it here. I find reviews more interesting if it's like I'm watching a specific person's video on this thing because I want to know how that person feels about it. And I trust that if I'm watching multiple videos about it, or just like the first part of it, like you're going to give me the basic facts. So I know what you're responding to. And then I want to know, what is your take? Like, how do you feel about it? What is your reaction to it? That is more meaningful.
It's because not everything is about objective fact. Objectively, the Rev Reaper is an absolutely terrible blaster by every metric. I still love it.
Yeah, because it's fun. And like,
so you can't just advertise the exact facts about that and expect that to be what everyone's opinion is going to be on that, if that makes any sense. Because like some people will love it, some people will hate it. That's just how it is.
On the topic of objectivity about stuff as well, I feel like what we get here with our channel as well is we keep the stuff stripped down and objective. However, there's still the unique flavor of how the particular host presents the information.
Absolutely.
And then we also get the inclusive experience of, if you watch the podcast, you also get that host personal opinions on the topic. And it's all done in a manner that it's very entertaining and unique. And there are 4 different like ways in which a story can be presented. And even then there's variants. Like there's more typical Jolt segments. There's conspiracy Jolt segments. There are typical Grimz segments. And then there are Grimz shitpost segments like Mesotheliomnia, which are a collaboration between me and KT or other stuff. Like I also think that also just comes with how each of us have approached content and our background time. Like I've done more professional in air quotes review videos like my 1.2 video, which I'm proud of. But like, for example, some of my other more prouder works were my shit posts, like the Sillybutts Pro Tournament, one of my favorite videos I ever worked on. I want to say it was so much fun, like timing the roar in the Foam Pro Tournament announcement to a cat meow, and then timing it as well with the exact time the Silly Max launches in the video was like, nice.
I forgot about that video. It's been a long time since I watched it.
I mean, I made it over a year ago.
Well, so Silly, as a creator of new blasters, what kind of content do you like to see people making about your creations? Like what feels the most meaning, like how, like, because that's a big part of how people consume and like learn to understand your work. So like when that's out in the world, what do you like to see? Like what do you think represents what you're doing the best and like presents it in a way that you think is meaningful?
I, generally speaking, I try not to have a not a bias, but like a preference towards any specific sort of content, because generally speaking, I don't really watch Nerf YouTube anymore. I used to a lot. But then everything sort of, I don't know, it lost the charm for me. Like I was watching Bobo Love
another
a lot in, like,
YouTuber who has stepped away.
Like early 2010s and stuff like that. But once stuff became, he went away recently. But as things became more, I don't know, professionalized and and Nerf YouTube kind of shifted into the current era, I stopped watching things really. Now I only watch Out of Darts, which now I have a bias towards because I sell stuff there. And I watch Bradley Phillips because he does pretty good review videos and all that stuff. But in terms of what I like to see my stuff in, like if I need to choose to send stuff out to reviewers, everything, I guess. Any publicity for any blaster is good, in my opinion. And I think that that's the opinion of a lot of other designers that I know, is they're not picky about who they send stuff out to, because the work itself will speak to an extent. If your thing is good, then it doesn't matter who you send it to. Welcome will be like, oh my god, this is the best thing I've ever seen. Look at me shoot 10 million things. And then Bradley Phillips will give you a nice structured review with FPS numbers and all that stuff. And Coop will tell you all about all the 8 billion tactical rails and all that stuff. Not anymore, but he used to.
Right.
And it doesn't particularly affect how your thing itself is received, dependent on what category or what person is making it, as opposed to or instead of just, view numbers and did they like it. If they like it and they have view numbers, it'll do well and you'll probably feel positive about the video. It doesn't matter the content format of the person.
That makes sense.
They can do whatever format and it will probably be fine. But news and objective reviews do tend to be my preferred one, because they're the ones that give feedback.
Those accuracy tests.
And that's quite valuable. So someone like Bradley Phillips will tell you what is wrong with it, and then you can go and fix it.
That's something I like doing with my videos, is if I had something and I had a problem with it, I wouldn't just say, oh yeah, this doesn't work, wah wah. I'd actually try and fix it on camera.
Yeah. Figure out what's going on, what is the solution to this, then other people who have one can take that advice, the builder can take that advice and make changes. We're in the middle of that. We won't talk about it and say who it is now, but we're in the middle of that actually with a builder right now, who's been taking our feedback on a product. And it's been super productive. Like, multiple things have already been changed in their production line. And every blaster that gets shipped will have those things fixed going forward, and it's a cool product so far. So
well, that's good to hear.
Like that stuff exists in the hobby, that those things are happening, and I think that I think that if you get away from that sort of like necessary objectivity, those relationships can flourish a little bit better between people who are, who are designing things and people who are doing content creation, and obviously a lot of those people are the same people, but but I think when those relationships flourish, it's only good for the hobby.
I don't think that was the answer that you were expecting from me, but
no, I think that's really, I mean, I think that makes obviously that makes perfect sense. No press is bad press.
Well, except for when you're
on a certain level
on reviewers' hands.
I mean, yes and no. Nobody is going to forget the name Warden. As a blaster. And obviously it's as a bad blaster, but like, it's notorious. Everybody knows the name.
And now, even though they've been fixed, it's got such a bad name, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right. But like, if you're an independent creator and you have a situation like that and you're able to come back from it, everybody knows your name. And if you make a good product after that, I can't tell you that the bad product that came before isn't going to help people. Like, people are going to be like, if you put out a product and it has a massive flaw that you missed and a reviewer catches it, and then you do a follow-up product that fixes all those problems, everybody's going to be watching those second reviews to see if it comes back or if it's another disaster.
That's true and to an extent, but also
it's obviously not ideal. It would be better to just be like, amazing product the first time.
Right.
I'm just saying, like, that is still press. People know your name now.
Oh yes,
and like,
definitely. Press is good.
like to some degree, press is just always good.
Yes. But
Speaking of people recognizing your accomplishments, I have our closing question for this podcast, which I would like to present to everybody and get your little answer before we say
done already.
goodnight.
I could talk for another hour.
I know, but we've already gone for 2, and I still have to edit about a third of the show.
Oh no.
So,
all right.
This week, actually, just hours ago, 2 eBay auctions ended. One was for a gold Nerf long shot, the other for a silver Nerf long shot, both of which appear to be, and this does seem to be legitimate, they do appear to be done by Hasbro employees as awards internally for potentially for product that performed well. We weren't able to fully confirm that was exact. We were able to confirm with people who are consistently in the Hasbro offices that these things do exist. This was done. They were production line blasters that were painted, not specially molded or specially made ones in like a chrome. It was like a chrome paint. These do appear to be legitimate. They have a solid source and reasonable backup behind this. They both sold within the last few hours. But it got me thinking, and I want to pose this question to each of you. Let's say your contributions to the community are being recognized by a custom gilded trophy blaster. It could be any blaster, although I'm going to say for Jolt King, it cannot be a Jolt.
Screw you.
Just to make you think about it a little bit more.
Would have been my choice anyway.
What blaster would be turned into a gilded trophy to be given to you to recognize your contributions to the community?
All right, so I've given this one a bit of thought because I saw it earlier. I know my choices, so I have a twofold kind of response. So if we're talking in more of a serious, in air quotes, like this blaster is more akin to how they play on the field type of thing, and this is stuff they're more partial to. It would probably be, originally I was going to say the Strife or the Raven, but I've seldom used those in recent years. It would probably be, since I'm like, I guess one of the things I get known for a lot of times is he's been around a while, would probably be like some kind of gilded, kitted out long shot. Or if we're talking more recent, it would be like a Dart Zone Pro Mark 1.1, since that's one of the blasters until I got 3D printed blasters that I was most commonly seen on the field using. And if we're talking more just for fun, then it would probably be a inline clip Rival Fate or a McCree revolver. The McCree revolver is a funny one because I used to go to a Nerf arena a lot. They didn't want us to go too hard on the kids, so I pick up the McCree revolver and I dual wielded them on the field, and I was still quite effective against the adults with like Prometheuses and other stuff, and I dual wield them, and I was a menace. So those are like the, in air quotes, 4 potential ones that I'd probably be seeing.
Jolt, it sounds like you have something in mind.
This is a very easy one for me, and no, the answer wouldn't have been a Jolt anyway. The answer would be the Recon CS6.
I actually thought it was going to be a Recon. I just had to make the Jolt joke anyway.
Yeah.
Just to be
For
clear,
those who don't know, the Jolt is not my
favorite.
favorite blaster. The Recon is.
Yeah. Well, and you've done the you sort of mastered the Retalicon.
I mean, yeah, the only
Retaliconing.
The guide beforehand that was my reference online for the longest amount of time, that channel no longer exists, actually. So Jolt's guide is like the closest thing to that old guide I used to refer to, which is one of the things I think I commented on that video to him about.
The number of people I've had comment that they actually made one off of that guide video and it worked is astounding.
Nice.
Yeah.
So that makes me happy that I put the year of effort into that video.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, I'm going to go now because I think my answer is I want to end with Silly.
Okay.
And I want Vile to go after me.
I'm already ready.
Mine honestly would probably be a Skewer. I think that for me, aside from being, it's the first 3D printable blaster I built completely on my own. Like printed all the parts and assembled. But the key thing for me too is, as far as I know, the second Skewer that we made in this house was the first one made by a child. I was able to help my kid build a Skewer, and I feel like that was a really formative thing for what I'm trying to achieve as a parent in the hobby. And it's kind of one of the things that really like solidified this as a hobby for me in a lot of ways. So I would like to believe that it would be the Skewer, although it might also be some kind of like Elite Junior thing if someone else was doing it and not asking me what to do.
That's pretty wholesome.
Yeah. Vile, what you got?
Chronos.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that makes a lot of
yeah.
sense.
Saw that one coming.
Yeah.
End of the day, it would be the Chronos. I have, and a lot of people might say, well, there's many others. The reason why I have built many of them as gifts, a lot of them for people who are now retired military. I've sent them to actual, military bases to be played with that are all modded. I've built multiple ones for giveaways on charity events that I've done. It's by far, and some of my favorite kits are the Ezekiel kits. And I actually just recently got one for myself because I actually, out of all the kits that I've built, I still don't have one that I have built for me. So, but yeah, that would be my kind of one that I like the most.
All right.
Pretty good answer.
That's a great answer.
Yeah.
Well, and we've all seen, like, Vile has done so many mods on the Chronos, so and use it as like a power system to fire so many different things, and
Ballistic balls.
Yeah.
so that makes a lot of sense to me.
3D print a big Chronos that fires ballistic balls. Next project.
My God, that's an amazing idea.
Oh, I would buy that.
I'll do
I
it
have
for you.
a-
I'll add it to my list.
I have a 3D scanner, and I've been needing to break that out again. I might just 3D scan an entire Chronos and then enlarge it.
Easy.
Easy cake.
All right, Silly, lead us out. What's yours?
1 second, I'm writing this down. I'm actually going to make that. That's an actual thing that I'm going to do. I think that I'm going to have to go for like one of those twofold answers again. I think
That's
that
fine.
if it was a blaster that I like and I want a gold one of, it would probably be something in like the Supermax 5000 family of blasters, like the Supermax 5000, 2000,
Mhm.
That group, or like a 95 crossbow, golden.
Of course.
If it needed
Which a blaster that appeared in our in this episode actually.
Oh, did it?
Yes.
I
Yes,
am
it
of
did.
course. Well, I'm saying this on Thursday before the episode's aired, so Silly has not seen it yet. So spoiler alert.
Wait, the crossbow appeared in
crossbow.
our episode?
It
You
did.
also have not seen it yet, so I don't know what to tell
Well,
You
you.
I
need
need
a
to see
crossbow
it.
appearance. You know I have one,
I need
right?
to watch this. I have 3.
Well, good news. You will get to,
One of them is new
Tomorrow.
in box.
or if you're listening to this podcast, yesterday. Anyway, so a Supermax blaster or
Or a 95 crossbow, or one of like the Hasbro prototype Stampedes, where it's a recon with a giant gearbox strapped to the back.
oh right.
If anyone's seen pictures of that from like the Nerf Haven days,
Oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that,
yeah.
yes.
that
that
in
thing.
gold would be amazing. But if it needed to
Wild.
be a blaster that represented
The golden
me
shit brick.
and my hobby contributions, it would probably have to be like a slab or something like that with everybody's signatures on it. At End War 2022, I brought one of the last prototype slabs there, and everyone that I met that I had only met online before, everyone that I met in person, I had them sign their name on it. So I have a
That's
a
awesome.
neon green slab over on my blaster pile.
Oh yeah,
with
I think
everybody's
I signed
signatures
that
on it.
one.
Yes, you did.
That's fun. That's
Yeah,
fun.
that was
So
cool.
that in gold with all the memories attached. That would be very nice.
I love that.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, that in the end, that's what this is all about, right? Like, we say this a lot when we're talking about, Nerf YouTube and like Nerf online discourse, and whenever things get crazy, this is my mantra: is talking about toys on the internet. Just have to remind yourself it's talking about toys on the internet. But when it comes down to it, the hobby isn't. When we're worried about like Dart Zone is trying to trademark stuff and Nerf is trying to patent stuff, and the hobby isn't. Those companies contribute to the hobby. All the creators contribute to the hobby. The hobby isn't those things. The hobby is the people, and the hobby is interactions between the people. And sometimes those interactions are over blasters, and sometimes those interactions are over games, and sometimes those interactions are over discourse. But like, that is what the hobby is, and like remembering that,
Yeah.
I think is really important.
Meeting new people and making new friends.
And getting to chat with you for 2 hours, 22 minutes, and 39 seconds.
Yeah,
plus however
rambling.
much is left. This has been a delight. It's been really, really great having you on. We will definitely be having you back at some point. And
if you have listened all the way to the end of this podcast, you are a true Foam News Collective fan.
That you are,
yeah, for
viewer,
real.
listener.
I've had an increasing number of people who listen to the podcast say that the long episodes are their favorite. And part of the thing that was kind of part of my hope going into the podcast, as much as I don't want to be recording a podcast at 12:02 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. But I know that we only produce the podcast every 2 weeks. A lot of podcasts are weekly or even more often. And so, I hope that people feel like they don't have to do it in one sitting. They can take their time over the course of 2 weeks. You have 2 weeks to listen to this podcast. If you've just finished it on Saturday, I guess you know this now for next time. There's no time. You don't have to get it done right away, right? Like you've got a long time to listen to the podcast.
So this is a little aside for the people listening. If you've made it this far, one of two things. I saw another channel do this that did really long form content. It helps the algorithm, but it's also good for you. YouTube isn't very good about holding your place in a video, so if you're going to stop watching, I would advise commenting your timestamp, so that way you can just click on it.
Yep.
And the second thing is, if you've made it this far and you've watched all the way through, comment bagel in your comments somewhere. Just say bagel.
And make sure
say
to
bagel.
smash that subscribe button.
I will personally
Ring the bell.
reply with like a winky face or something on my main
Amazing.
account if you have commented bagel in your comments somewhere.
All right, y'all heard it. We better see those bagels.
Grimz, I'm holding you to that.
Do I get to comment
Silly.
bagel because I listened through it by being
Yes,
here?
yes, you get to comment
Yes.
bagel.
You get to comment bagel.
Yeah, I suppose. Silly, where can folks find you on the internet? Where can they find your work?
I am on YouTube. My YouTube channel is Sillybutts. Very basic and easy to find. I have a GitHub named Sillybutts, github.com/Sillybutts. That's where I put all of my files. And I also have a website currently. It's stuffbysilly.com, and that has a web page on it with links to all of my other stuff, as well as some behind the scenes content for people that are interested.
That's awesome. We will, of course, have all of those things linked down below whatever media you're enjoying this podcast on. As always, Vile streams on Twitch every Friday and Saturday. Be sure to come hang out. That's kind of where we're all vibing a lot of the time on the weekends. A lot of the FNC community comes there. I stream music. I have a bunch of streams on my schedule over the course of November, December. I've been a little bit quiet on that, but I will be doing more of it in the near future. So come say what's up. Vile is at Vile_mods on Twitch. And I'm twitch.tv/kinetic turtle. Jolt, what's up,
Eating
Jolt?
hot glue.
Good, there we go. We got that done. And I think that's it for us. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Good night, y'all.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.